Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of You Thrive Every Day. I am so thankful for you guys for tuning in. We have another great guest. So, Eric, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Let us know where you're from and where you are now.
Hello, April. My name is Eric Taylor from Taylor to You Coaching. I am a native New Yorker, born and raised in New York City, and I currently live in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Arizona. All right. So, New York. All right.
Oh, yeah, proud too.
I know, right? So give me an idea of your upbringing. So were you raised by mother and father, just mother? Let me know what your background kind of is.
So I grew up in New York City in the Washington Heights neighborhood on 193rd Street. I was born in Columbia Presbyterian Hospital, and I guess about the age of 5 or 6, moved down to 95th Street. So always on the west side of Manhattan in New York. Went from Washington Heights to the Upper West Side of Manhattan. I grew up with my mother and father, William Taylor and Cheryl Taylor, and had an older sister, 5 years older, Elise Taylor. And, pretty normal first 6 years of my life, and just, growing up in New York City and good memories, fun vacations and, good stuff. My father had a business and my mother was a teacher. So we were very much New Yorkers and Harlemites. Both, my father was from Tampa, Florida. My mother was born and raised in Harlem. And, but my father's business was in Harlem. So we definitely were like a Harlem, Manhattan family.
Okay. And so were your parents together for the duration of your childhood?
Yes. They were married 16 years. And then unfortunately in 1977, my father was murdered.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah. So
how old were you at that point?
I was 6 years old. It was before my 7th birthday. It was in May. And I was about to turn 7 in September. And it was, he was supposed to meet my mother for dinner one night and was going to meet her and didn't make it. And he never made it there or home. And he was murdered on 110th Street in Morningside Drive in New York City, in Harlem.
Wow.
Yeah. And my life changed forever. I remember it was a Friday night, the police came to our home, and my sister and I think we were playing Scrabble. And and they came to the door, and my mom sent me upstairs because I remember I could see the room, my sister's room overlooked the street. So I could see the lights in the police car. And that's what made me run downstairs. And then she sent me upstairs, and then she came back in and she was crying. And, I'm like, "What's wrong, Mommy? What's wrong?" And she told us what happened. And my sister immediately, she was Daddy's little girl. She was 11. She started bawling, and her name was Elise. So I was like, "Lacey." And I was like, "Don't cry, don't cry." And then she was hitting the television, and I remember saying, I'll never forget this. It's like a movie. And it will be a movie one day. But it was like a movie. And I said, Lacey, don't break the television. Everything's going to be okay.
And so do you know, like, the backstory? Like, was he robbed? Was he just...
No, it was, they wanted to kill him. Okay. He was a pretty powerful man in Harlem, and a banker and stuff. And he was well known and had a huge funeral at Riverside Church. It was a funeral like they had for, what's his name, Ozzie Davis. Like, it was, all of Harlem was shut down. My father, was friends with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Muhammad Ali. He knew Malcolm X. He knew everybody. He was friends with the jazz musician who did the soundtrack for Bridges in Madison County, Johnny Hartman.
I knew a lot of influential people.
Yeah. Actually, Kareem came to our house. I remember when Kareem, because he played at Power Memorial, and that's how my father knew him from Harlem. And Kareem came to my house one day, and I just remember him trying to bend down and come through the door. And I was, like 5, 6 years old, and I'm just like, wow. But yeah, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was a friend of my dad's, and Ali came to my house, and it was something else. It was, yeah. So he was amazing. He was just a great guy, bigger than life, fun.
And you
Uh,
said he was a banker.
yeah, he worked up in Harlem, and he had his own store. He owned a laundromat and a candy store. So,
So was there some street shit going on? Let's keep it real. What was going on?
let's just say, I don't know if you saw what's that the movie Hoodlum and the new TV show with Forrest Whitaker,
Look, all you had to say was
the,
hoodlum,
God,
honey.
the Godfather of Harlem.
I'm close to 40, so I know all about hoodlum, honey.
Yeah, so my father, knew Bumpy Johnson, and
Okay.
yeah, started, used to work with him and for him, and then branched out on his own, and yeah, so he was
So
known as Kid Taylor. So
6 years old is very young.
yeah.
So how did you, if you remember, how did you kind of respond after the loss of your father?
I was tormented with nightmares for a long time. I had severely bad dreams. I remember, I would run down to my mother's bedroom. She was like 2 floors down, and I would run down and go sleep with her and be crying. And I had this recurring nightmare that I was like being taken or kidnapped, and I went to go grab a library book in my school, and then all of a sudden it would turn into the back of a car. And then there would be 2 people driving the car, and one of them in the front would turn around and laugh at me, and he would have like this face of a demon. And yeah, I was like tormented. And then I also remember that, and it shows you how the young mind works. I mean, I thought, or I would have dreams or visions that my father didn't love us anymore, and that he left and went to another family. So yeah, it was tough. I definitely went through a lot. It was a tough time, and then there was much more. So my mother got remarried about less than a year later to a family friend and a man who worked for my father. And he unfortunately, he idolized my dad, and he told me years later, and apologized to me. He said, I was trying to be Kid Taylor, and there was only one Kid Taylor, and I couldn't be Kid Taylor. But they got remarried. He was taking over my father's business. He kind of went through all of our money that was saved for my college, my sister's college, pawned my mother and my father's jewelry. My uncle was in Korea. All my uncles are in the military. My father's family is from Tampa, Florida. So all my uncles were in the military. My dad was the black sheep. He was like, he started his own shoe shining business in Tampa, Florida to earn the money to move up to New York, to Harlem, lived with his oldest sister, I think, Mary Alice. He had 2 sisters and 4 brothers, 3 brothers. There were 6 of them. And my grandparents were just the best. But so he got his own shoe shine business, and then got enough money to move to Harlem. Probably in 1952, 53, moved up to Harlem and just made his way, and, built up everything and created his own empire. And he was a self-made man. Probably back then at that time, unfortunately, African Americans were not really allowed at like Wall Street, and he didn't have the funds for, to get only elite families were going to college at that time. And so he was poor, but he probably would have been a big time stockbroker on Wall Street. I mean, he had a brilliant mind for mathematics and numbers, and you know. But so he took care of his younger brother, my Uncle Bernard. And my uncle at the time was not happy with my stepfather, nor my mother, because my stepfather was kind of messing things up. And my uncle was, you know, his brother, my dad was his everything. You know, my father gave my uncle a job, a car, an apartment, purpose, you know what I mean? Like everything. And my uncle one day kind of lost it, and he shot my mother in the head, point blank range, and left her for dead. And my mom, she's a badass chick. My
Okay.
mom, I always say, because she's still here alive today. So I always say with my mom, the title of her book is Should Have Been on Oprah Twice. Okay? So Cheryl Taylor, Harlem born and raised, even a teacher in Harlem, she got up with her brains oozing out of her head, got in her Mercedes Benz that my father had bought for her right before he was murdered, named it Lipstick because it was like bright cherry red. And she drove, got in her car, drove, stopped at the lights, parked the car, went inside the store, and then dropped. They rushed her to Columbia Presbyterian. One of my father's old friends knew one of the doctors there, and his name was Tommy Green. He called up one of the doctors, and you know, and so this doctor kind of got famous working on my mom because nobody in this was 78 had really, you know, people weren't surviving things like that. And they,
No.
so they, you know, had to obviously rushed her into surgery, all this stuff. So they were able to get, I think, a bullet out or half of a bullet out, but there were still bullet fragments that remained to this day in her brain. So she can never have an MRI. But they had to put like a mesh screen in her head, in her skull. And they didn't know how she was going to be. They kind of thought she might be a vegetable. And my mom took a year sabbatical from her teaching job, teaching 5th grade. She relearned everything, walk, talk, everything, fine motor, PT, OT, speech. And she went back to work in 1 year.
Oh
Now,
my
they
God.
said, all the family members and different people, because I didn't know, they said the thing that had changed, her personality had switched a little bit. But besides that, to me, I didn't really know. I was, 7 at the time. This happened before my 8th birthday. So before
Oh
the
my
summer, so May before my 7th birthday, and then June before my 8th birthday, both my parents were shot. And I actually was there at the house and got a phone call. And some crazy person called my house, and I picked up the phone, and they were like, "Your mother's dead. She drove off the George Washington Bridge." And then my babysitter, I guess, or whatever, I picked up, you know, got on the phone, and I got off. But for a moment there, I was like, I just remember thinking, well, I don't have any parents. Like, what am I going to do? You know what I mean? Like, it was just, I can remember like being frozen almost, you know? And so they took my sister and I, some family members were against it, and then some people were for it. But I think it was my sister's godmother who said, you know, we don't know what's going to happen to Cheryl, so let the kids come to the hospital and see her. You know, and that was, I get it, and I think that's the right thing to do, but it was not good because it was traumatic.
Right.
Because I just saw, you know, all her hair was shaved off. She was completely bandaged. She couldn't really talk. And I just,
So that's a difficult situation. Like,
yeah, I've blocked out. There are a lot of things that I probably can't remember that I've blocked out. But I think over the years, doing my own introspection and therapy and stuff, things that led me to become a life coach, right, helped me kind of heal and understand, not always remember, because some memories I would probably have to go in some sort of like hypnosis or deep, psychotherapy. I did go to counseling after my father's murder. I remember that. But for me, it was just like going to play catch in Central Park with some tall white guy, But he was really nice. I remember that. But it was intense. I don't, there's no other way to describe it, right? I mean, for anybody on the outside.
Having, foresight now and awareness, would you recommend, because that's a situation that a lot of adults and children go through when you have somebody that's in a hospital under those conditions. And like you said, people felt like, you guys should see your mother. If you were another adult in that situation, would you want that to be done? Or now that you have awareness?
It's difficult, right? Because they didn't know, because like I said, nobody was surviving that. So they literally were like, will she survive the surgery? Will she survive, period? So I think in a way, I would, because I wouldn't want my children later on to be like, you didn't even let me say goodbye to mommy, or do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, and then in our case, I had my stepfather, but we didn't have my dad already. So like, I get it, and I agree with it, even though it's traumatic.
Exactly. So as she's healing, who's taking care of you and your sister?
So we had a babysitter / housekeeper named Nicholas Robinson, and we called her Nikki. She was Puerto Rican, about your complexion, and just my angel, my heart, my soul. She was just, the best caregiver, and just held everything down. She was very close to my father. My father, was very close to her. My father was the type of man that he would literally, Thanksgiving, Christmas, like feed half of Harlem. Thanksgiving turkeys, Christmas turkeys. He would pay people's rent, like literally pay their rent for them. You know what I mean? Like, so we were taught at a young age charity and giving back and all that type of stuff. And Nikki was, the person that really held it down. So much of it is a blur. I know my sister at 11 and 12 used to help me. She remembers, so she would tell me stories. She would help me do my homework. She had to cook dinner. And, I don't remember like my mom going through the therapy. It's all a blank for me,
So what about stepdad? Where is he at this point?
He's around, but he got addicted to cocaine and was partying and cases of Cristal and Bahamas for the weekend, and
he was living his best life.
He was partying and not being a stepfather or a father or anything.
So what was the deal with your uncle? So like, do we know why he shot her?
He felt like my uncle was kind of running the business, and then when my mom got remarried, my stepfather took over, and he didn't like that. And then my stepfather and my mom were not being so nice to him, and he was emotionally unstable and fragile. And in my head, I'm like, if you go shoot anybody, shoot my stepfather, don't shoot my mom. Like, right. what sense does that make? But he
probably, you guys are East Coasters, so it's real with the respect and the loyalty. So he probably felt that she owed him that. Like, this ninja over here ain't family, whatever with him. But
exactly. I think my Uncle Bernard, because, like I said, my grandparents, devout Baptists from the South. My grandfather was a deacon in the church. So they actually wanted my father's body buried down in Tampa.
Mm.
in Harlem. And so there was just a big divide in the family, which was really hard on me because my mother's father was alive, but my mother's mother died when she was 14.
Mm.
So I only knew my grandma. And I loved my grandma in Tampa and my grandpa in Florida. Like you know, she was like the type, I remember getting a spanking, getting the switch off the tree, and she was like, whack, and we had a big brawl one time because I didn't want to eat my hominy grits. And so I was real stubborn. And she said, if you don't eat those hominy grits, you're going to have to sit here and eat them. And she's like, if you don't eat them, you're going to have to go straight to nap, and you can't watch Rin Tin Tin. Rin Tin Tin was like my favorite show at the time. This is like, 75 or something. And I refused to eat hominy grits. And I sat at the table, they were getting cold. I just was not going to eat it. I didn't like how they tasted, whatever. So I guess I kind of won that battle and lost it because I didn't eat it. She sent me to bed. I took my nap. And we just were like banging heads, She was the Libra, I was the Virgo. We were just like banging heads, and I swore that day I would never eat hominy grits for the rest of my life. And I'm 49 now. I'm gonna be 50 in September. I have never, ever had hominy grits again in my life.
You just put some butter and the sugar on the grits. What's wrong with the grits?
Now I'll eat some cream of wheat, but I don't do hominy grits. I guess my grandma scarred me, yo. It was like, we had that battle. But so, my uncle, yeah, I guess he felt disloyalty. They were all upset that my mother got remarried. But you got to remember, my father was nine years older than my mother. He was 45. She was 36. She had an 11-year-old and a 6-year-old. She basically went from her father's house to getting married. She got married at 21 with my dad. She was graduating college and then becoming a teacher. So my father was like her husband, like her end all to be all, her everything.
Exactly.
And
so when he
spoiled
passed,
her.
That's why she chose someone.
Treated her like a queen. So she had never been alone. That was the love of her life. She didn't know how to take 2 steps.
Yeah, she didn't know how to function.
I think, matter of fact, if I remember my sister telling me, I think we missed my father. Like, I don't think we showed up at my own father's wake. She was that comatose, like, you know what I mean? Like we were, of course the funeral was whatever, but like she couldn't even, it was that traumatic, dramatic, everything. Like she was gone. Like she told me years later, she said, basically that a part of her died that day.
Yeah, that's really real. It's really real. And especially when that's all like we forget how powerful the brain is and that it actually creates our reality,
Yeah, and I think so with her already knowing my stepfather, because they grew up together in Harlem, and the irony is, even though he was kind of wrong in how he was and all that, his sisters became my aunts, and my stepfamily, that's like my family. So my cousins, because our families already knew each other. I said, he worked for my father. One of his sisters, who was one of my favorite aunts, worked for my father. Found out years later, his oldest sister, was one of my aunts, went on a date with my father to the opera, on a double date, with my father's best friend, who they were best friends at each other's weddings, best mans. And his son was my father was his godfather. It was my cousin and my godbrother. You know what I mean? So the families were already intertwined. Mm-hmm. And so then my stepfather, I just don't think my father's family was able to accept that. And I'm not saying my mother was right or wrong. She was just surviving.
Exactly.
But I do think my stepfather
had to deal with what was comfortable for her.
Exactly. But my stepfather, I think, took advantage of her, and I think he knew what he was doing. And that's
definitely.
Unfortunate. Like he was supposed to go to law school and become a lawyer. That's what he had told me. That's what my father wanted him to do. I was going to pay for him to go to law school and become a lawyer. And that.
Okay.
Didn't
So
happen.
mom comes home from hospital, and as she's going through her healing process, how long was stepdad around? Did he continue to be around, or what happened?
So sorry, I just want to make sure I'm locking up my phone so we don't get interrupted. But he, their marriage only lasted, and I don't remember exactly. I want to say 3, 4 years the most. Um, but the damage was done in that time, and it was just a lot of damage. He was physically abusive to my mother. He sexually abused my sister, and I didn't know that until like adulthood, like, you know. And it was right before he died of cancer, and I spoke to him about it. And
Oh,
he,
no, you broke up a little bit.
oh, sorry, can you hear me good? So,
Okay, so you said
so
he was abusive.
he was physically abusive to my mother and sexually abused my sister. And he, I didn't find out about it until later on. My sister never told me. I had no idea. And I confronted him
Tell
about it.
anybody?
Huh?
Did she tell anybody, or was this like her little secret?
I I don't know who she, I don't think she told anyone. And she's suffered a lot. She's had a lot of emotional wounds and issues, and now finally going through a divorce right now. She's just been through a lot.
Yeah.
But he, I, excuse me, I spoke to my stepfather about it, and he admitted it, and he apologized to me. And I said to him, I said, I'm a man. You need to apologize to my sister and my mother. You know, that's who you need to apologize to.
How old were you at this time when you confronted him?
Um, 37, 38.
Okay.
It was right around when I got married. Um, but he had gotten sick. I think he had passed away of pancreatic cancer or something. It was really sad and torturous, and you know, it
And
was.
so where was your mental at having this conversation with someone who you knew for fact violated your mother, and then to find out that he violated your sister? Where were you at mentally having this conversation with him?
Well, at this time, I was already a Christian. I became a Christian at 29 in 1999. So I really had prayed on everything, and in my mind, I had already forgiven everyone,
Okay.
including him. And I hadn't spoken to him in years, but we would randomly see each other and talk through different family members or my oldest aunt's funeral. And she had passed away, and we had a funeral in Martha's Vineyard. And I had spoke to him then, and but I didn't know about that at the time. And that was in '04. And then I think it was '08, we spoke about it because my sister finally told me, I think in '07, '08. And you know, we had some good heart to hearts before he passed away, you know. And even in '04 when we spoke, you know, that's when he apologized to me for his behavior during the marriage and all that he did, you know, even, you know, choking my mom and stuff. And he he had changed his life around, you know. And I have two younger stepsisters and an older stepbrother. And you know, he had turned his life around, I think, on his third or fourth marriage.
So did he give some kind of, or did he attempt to give some kind of explanation of his behavior to help you understand where he was? Or was it
He
just like,
basically just admitted that he was alcoholic and addicted to cocaine, and he lost. And that's when he told me. He said, I was trying to be Kid Taylor. And he said, there's only one Kid Taylor, and I couldn't live up to it, walk in his shoes, or be him. He's like, and for that, I am so sorry. That's exactly what he said to me, you know.
wow.
So it was deep. It was, and it's hard because like, I had to mentally separate him from everyone else because everyone else took me in and treated me, his sisters treated me like I was their nephew. My cousins are, from this step marriage, the people that I had blood cousins, but these were not my blood cousins, but they didn't treat me. And to this day, we're cousins. You know what I mean? Like we're family. We don't think of it in any other way. And all my aunts, his three sisters, only one is still alive, just turned 84 on June 14th. And she is an angel. Oh my God, Aunt Helena. And she is just, you know what I mean? And like, so, and my Aunt Barbara and my Aunt Eleanor, they passed away and, broke my heart. And they were just, they treated me like blood, like
Yeah,
gold.
like where their
They
blood.
loved me. Because they also honored my father and they loved my father. My Aunt Eleanor worked for my
Yeah,
father
I
and
think
they
that is
knew him.
respect for him. Yeah.
And their mother was also friends with my father. You know what I mean? They would see him in the streets and stuff. So there was, like I said, the families were already intertwined. But I think for my family in Tampa, for the Taylor family, my Uncle Bernard, like that wasn't the case and that didn't fly. And, but, and then he passed away. And years later, I confronted him in Tampa, Florida, when I was down there I went for two funerals, 6th grade and 8th grade. One of my uncles died, and then my grandfather died in 8th grade. And I saw my Uncle Bernard when I was down there, and he apologized to my sister and myself for shooting my mother. And that was deep too. You know what I mean? So like I have these adult figures apologizing to me as a child and then as a young man. And it's, in a way, it's funny. I'm thinking about it for the first time, right? Like these juxtaposed positions of people that are supposed to love and take care of you that brought more hurt and pain and harm to you and your own growing up and experience and family. It wasn't easy.
So take me through this journey now. Who is Eric at this point? You've witnessed abuse, murder, all these things before the age of 11, basically. So what's going on? So after your stepdad and your mother split, what's going on?
I don't know. I think for me, I was always into my sports and my music. I loved my Saturday morning cartoons, my superheroes. I think I would drift off into pretend worlds because the pain of my real life was too much. I think as being an 80s baby and a latchkey kid, a lot of television was raising me. I learned to be extremely introspective as a child. And the irony is, right? And it's so deep now that I am into different things and even knowing astrology, I have a Capricorn moon. And I laugh at that because it talks about the Capricorn moon being an old soul or feeling that responsibility to need to take care of the moon represents your mother in astrology and your family, but your mother, right? And so the need to have to take care or feel that responsibility to have to be an adult as a child, but to feel like you have to be responsible to take care of your parents or your mother. And for me, at the age of 6, I felt a responsibility for my mother and my sister. I felt like I had to be the man of the house at 6 years old. So I was very different from my peers. And I almost, and I guess in some way I would joke and self-analyze and say I was like a sports nerd. Adults would come to me to ask questions about sports. I knew sports better than the adults. I would read the paper people don't know about this anymore, right? I would read the sports paper, but I'd read the newspaper, New York Times, New York Post, New York Daily News, the Sporting News, Sports Illustrated. And I would read the box scores and the articles, and I knew every stat for every baseball, football, and basketball player. And I had a connection to sports that mean a lot to me because it helped me stay alive.
And I'm like, hold on, you from New York now? Was y'all
and
gambling over there?
and
What was
then
going on?
but then also through my father had season tickets to the New York Knicks and the New York Giants. So I was a diehard Knicks fan. I became a Pittsburgh Steelers fan instead of a Giants fan because this was before my father passed. I remember watching a Steelers Raiders game with him, and I guess he had liked the Raiders and or was rooting for them. But my mother, and I liked the black and gold jerseys of the Steelers, and my mother thought Franco Harris was cute. So I became a Steelers fan to go against my dad because she liked Franco Harris, and then I liked Franco Harris and Terry Bradshaw. And then growing up playing football, I was Lynn Swann. I was a great athlete and a great wide receiver. And so sports, after my father was murdered, that was my biggest connection and memory. And then going to Madison Square Garden because we were, I like to say I wasn't there before Spike Lee, but I was down courtside before Spike Lee. So I was the young black kid in the garden. I used to talk to Magic Johnson and Larry Bird and Dr. J and Kareem and Isaiah Thomas and all the players because I was right behind the visiting team's bench. And I would talk smack to all the players. Everybody knew me because I was loud, proud, young black kid sitting, I wasn't on the floor, but I was right on the ground, and it was like 5 seats up. So I was literally courtside. And the players could hear me, and I would talk right to them. And Magic Johnson, I hear him, on the court when he played. He was like a coach on the floor. You could hear him yelling. And Dr. J was my favorite player. I liked the Sixers and the Knicks, but I would talk to the players. In the Garden, and at that time, I stood out because there was nobody really black that low besides my family and then my father's best friend, Tommy Green's family. We had 4 seats together, 2 and 2. And so, and my father knew the statistician, Bootsy Collins, or Bootsy, no, not Bootsy Collins, the artist, Bootsy Thornton, I forgot his last name, but Bootsy Raymond, or Calvin Ramsey, and then Bootsy did the stats, and Calvin Ramsey worked for the Knicks as well. And so we would get the stats. He'd come up to me and, hey, my mom or whatever, and give us the stats at halftime. And I would talk, everybody knew me, so, and I would see like Gerald Wilkins when he was on the Knicks, and Dominique Wilkins' mother, she'd come and sit down there about her fur coat, and I would talk to Dominique Wilkins' mother and different people. So I was known. And, and then when Jordan came, the women started to come, and they would give me their phone numbers on their business cards on a piece of paper so I could give it to, and this was the time, when Spike came. So then he was down there, and I would give the women's numbers from the women to Spike to give to Mike.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. I'm a part of all that history.
Okay, go ahead and name drop.
Oh, yeah. No. Listen, I'm walking my truth. So, it was just, so sports, I think for me at that time, I was very creative. I would take the baseball cards, and in my little bedroom, I would throw the ball off the wall and take the bat, and I'd have my glove, and I'd try to play catch. And depending on how the ball would bounce and this and that, and then I would run and dive. This is all by myself. I felt like I was an only child because my sister was 5 years older, and she was a girl, so we were very different, right? And I had friends and cousins. I've always been very popular, had a ton of friends, had a lot of cousins, but I would, life happens, and any kid, you're alone a lot. And but I would remember throwing the ball off the wall, and I would catch it, and then I'd run to the bases, and on all my baseball cards, I would mark, and I'd have stats, and I'd have my little notebooks, and people would just marvel at me, like, who is this kid? Like, because I would create like a whole season and stats and everything and category. So literally, like, my mom would have parties, or I remember being at my aunt's house in the summers, or spend my summers from like 7 to like 18 up in Martha's Vineyard every summer. And my aunt and everybody, they would just marvel at, like, just what I knew about sports and how passionate, how I was into it. And for me, it felt like a way to stay connected to my father, I think, you know, but it was also fun and an outlet. And then I just loved sports. It was just naturally who I was, you know?
So all through, did this carry on all throughout your teenagehood? Just the love of sports?
Yes, but before 11, um, at around 10 years old, I went to the doctor one day because I went with my mom. So I had the 7, then the 8. And then at 10, we went to the doctor. I remember as a little boy, I used to have to wear an eye patch because I had my right eye was a lazy eye and had poor vision. And I remember struggling in school. Like I started reading later than other kids and stuff. I wasn't dyslexic, but I just had poor vision. So I had trouble like reading and comprehending what I was reading. I was always smart, very intelligent, but I was just a slow reader, you know? So I remember I would go to the resource room and be taken out and go to the library one-on-one and do my reading. And I remember one of my first books that I read was a book about Muhammad Ali and another one about Pete Rose and maybe something about Jesse Owens. And you know what I mean? So like maybe Babe Ruth. So I would read these books about sports. And, you know, but I was just a slow reader. I couldn't keep up with the kids in class. And at 10, we went to the eye doctor because, so my mother's father, we called him Papa. His name was Andrew Grist. And he was completely blind. So he had an eye disease called RP, and it's retinitis pigmentosa. And what it does is that it deteriorates and messes up the rods and cones inside of your retina in your eye. It can create total blindness. It can create, you lose your peripheral vision. It can create night blindness. And so it's the way that it worked, it's sex linked. So my mother, the women become carriers. And then if they have a son, you could pass it on to the son. So my mother was a carrier from my grandfather, Papa. And so my sister didn't have it. And actually she did not become a carrier, but I have the eye disease. So I found out at 10 that I officially, or, you know, I didn't really know, had RP, retinitis pigmentosa. And we're still at the time learning more about it, but they kind of like, I guess to be honest, scared the hell out of me because they were like, you know, by the age of 21, you could be totally blind. So that was another thing I had to live with and carry. And then it became hard for me because the night blindness started to kick in around 10-ish. Then I had slowly, as I got older, the vision started to decrease enough to the point where at different ages I had to let go of different sports, which was devastating for me because I was a very good athlete and loved sports. Like I said, the connection with my father and everything. So at 13 or 12, I had to stop baseball, Little League. And I used to go play in Little League baseball, New Jersey. It was really good. Led the league in stolen bases one year and got an all-star trophy, played first and second shortstop. And then the last year, I remember playing right field. And I remember one day, I could not see the fly ball go from the bat up in the sky to the outfield. Couldn't see it and lost track of it. And then, you know, and the ball, and I just put my glove kind of over my head so it wouldn't hit me on the head because I didn't know where it went and I couldn't see it. And that was kind of the start. And then I think I didn't play Little League anymore, but then I played a little bit in the after school program. And it was called, like, we had a league called Astros and something else. And I remember playing, and then I started to not be able to see the ball good enough to hit it when it was being pitched. And, not like softball, slow, I could hit that and see it, no problem. But like, real pitching, like a fastball, hardball. And so then I stopped. And then I, at some point, had to stop. I think it was football and basketball. So needless to say, it all led me to becoming a track star in high school. So I tried out for basketball in 9th and 10th grade. And I didn't make varsity. And it was mainly because of my vision. Inside the gym, it was too dark. And it was shadowy, the lighting. This is the 80s. The lighting in gyms, it's not like some NBA arena with great lighting. I could see that. But, when it's spotty lighting, that was trouble for me. And so I couldn't, I had the skill, but because of my vision, I couldn't see the ball coming at me all the time or catch the ball off the rim properly, which was very frustrating because I could still play if I was outside, street ball. So, and then I tried it on JV and almost made the team, but then I was having an issue with my grades. But needless to say, freshman year, they saw me in the gym, the track coach, and he saw the way I could jump and this and that. And he was like, "You're pretty fast and you can jump pretty high." He's like, "Have you ever run track?" I was like, "No." And he's like, "Do you want to do the hurdles?" And I was like, "What?" And then so I started that, and I did the freshman year, did pretty good. As a freshman, I made it to the cities in New York City, the city finals at St. John's University, and placed in 5th place as a triple jumper. So to show you, I was a pretty good athlete, and that was in triple jumping. I made it to the cities as a freshman. Did triple jump, long jump, hurdles the freshman year, and then I stopped that. Sophomore year, I got into girls and basketball, so I left track alone. Then I went back, and then I had this issue with my grades because I got like sick, bronchitis in the beginning of school year around my birthday, and got really sick, walking pneumonia or something. Missed a couple weeks of school, and I was just behind the 8 ball, catching up. So I didn't do anything sophomore year. Then junior year, I went back to track and then really excelled and got like most improved, and I was doing no more hurdles, triple jump, long jump, 400, 800. Then my senior year, and we qualified for Penn Relays. Then my senior year, we won the Manhattan Borough Championship, 1989, indoor track championship. And we had beat George Washington High School, which was big because they had won like 13 years in a row. And then Martin Luther King High School. And my high school was like the melting pot. It was like our track team was Jewish, Irish, Chinese, Japanese, Black, Jamaican, the Dominican, Puerto Rican. Like we were everybody, right? So we were dope. We were like, yeah. And George Washington High School was in Washington Heights. And ironically, my mother went there. But it was mainly Black and a lot of Dominicans, but a lot of the Dominicans were older, because there's just, the grades and stuff like that and the birth certificates, right? So they had the ringers on their team. You got kids competing, they got the full mustache and beard. And, so instead of being 17, they might've been like 19, I don't know. But anyway, it was a big deal. They had won 13 years in a row and we defeated them. And we won, my relay team, we won the 4x400 relay. And came in first place, and I was on the relay team. And so it was just so it was dope that I could transition to sports, even with less vision. I took it where I couldn't do baseball, and couldn't do basketball, couldn't do football, and said, you know what? Okay, I can see good enough, and I'm gonna excel in track. And I played tennis as a young kid. I'm a great swimmer. Like I was a good athlete. And so it was very frustrating for me because that wasn't my fault. I couldn't control my vision or my eye disease,
So with all that you went through during your teenagehood, were you getting into any mischief, or were you just so focused on sports? Like that was where you got lost in,
To be honest with you, no, I was always a really good kid. I followed the rules. I wasn't perfect. I remember we would, New York City kids, you grow up fast. So between that and then having older cousins and summertime on the vineyard and we had freedoms, I remember started drinking Mad Dog 2020 and Southern Comfort and Coca-Cola. you know, around 15, 16 in high school. We saw the Freddy Krueger movies in the movie theater. We were all drinking and stuff like that. And, but that was about
You
it.
guys getting the alcohol?
Huh?
Where were you guys getting the alcohol?
Oh gosh, you know, from bodegas or then from older kids, you know, like in New York City, you can get whatever you want at what age you want. So the bodegas, you could go in and get a 40, you know, at pretty much whatever age you want. You know, they didn't really check and, you know, stuff like that. I never smoked cigarettes. Um, and I didn't try smoking marijuana. I remember I had a joint, I think I was like 17 or senior year or junior year high school or something, but it wasn't that big of a thing. And I just tried it a couple times and, you know, and ironically that was with my white friend. He turned me on to that. And we joke about it to this day. But, you know, but I just mainly just, you know, I would drink and, you know, but, you know, my mother was a school teacher. And Cheryl Taylor, like I said, born and raised in Harlem, taught fifth grade in Harlem for like, what, 35 years? Mama didn't play. So she was stern and strict. But with me, she said, look, you just be honest and tell me where you're going, what you're doing, and you can do it. But if you say you're going to be home at 12, be home at 12. If, you know, if I know where you're going, you know what I mean? It was like that. She trusted me. Because you got to remember, I was really mature. I mean, look at all that I had been through. You know what I mean? I wasn't really like my peers. I always had a wisdom. Like, honestly, I laugh. And I remember talking to a couple of friends on Facebook about, I was a relationship coach sophomore year of high school. My homegirls, like my girlfriends, they would ask me advice. Oh, what do I do with this? And what do you think about that? And I was always that type. I would always give that sage advice and wisdom. And needless that you know, I had no idea that would come into the future, right? But I was literally a relationship coach at like 15, 16 years old. I would, you know,
Wow. So
so
thank
like,
God for
yeah,
sports.
no, it was
Okay.
deep. Like, I always had a deeper, I think, insight and understanding about people and experiences in life. And I guess it was based on all that I had lived through and gone through. You know what I mean? I mean, you don't know anything different from what you experience and live, you know?
Yes, and that's what I was gonna say. Thank God for sports because for most inner city children, when you go through so many traumatizing events, it's so easy to get caught up into what we call that street life.
Yeah, well, no, trust me. And I had opportunities to deal drugs, to take or get into taking real types of drugs and deal real types of drugs. I had opportunities to get into a lot of bad stuff because it was around you. I mean, in New York City in the 80s, I mean, you know, that was crack and then AIDS, and there was so much going on. And, you know, we were very independent, you know, and there were gangs. I remember gangs, the Decepticons were really big, and they would come to different high schools and they would jump kids. And I remember a kid getting hit over the head with a baseball bat and he snatched his gold rope chain, you know, like right in front of me. Like, you know, we used to experience these types of things. And yeah, I gotta say, like, you know, I was a pretty good kid, you know.
So then take me through, because I mean, that is some scary shit, you know, for a doctor to say to you, okay, look, kid, you know, at about 21, you're probably going to be completely fucking blind. You know?
Yeah, it was I definitely would say I went through some times of depression. I can remember having thoughts of suicide or running away from home. You know,
And
those
so what
teen
stopped you?
um I knew I was loved. I knew I knew that my grandfather was amazing. He worked for the railroads, the train system in New York and Penn Station, which a lot of African Americans worked for in the you know 50s and 60s. You know, they would take the tickets and stuff like that and work on the subways. And I remember he told me a story one time he held the subway so I don't know if it was Jack Johnson or some heavyweight fighter could get on the train so he could go from New York to Philadelphia for his heavyweight fight. And he caught balls from Babe Ruth up in somewhere in Harlem. They lived on 155th, 157th up in Harlem. And, you know, my grandfather was totally blind, but he loved sports too. And he was this amazing storyteller, and he would tell me these stories. So my mother's family is from the Bahamas. They're from Nassau. And so my grandfather was Bahamian, and his father had died at a young age. There was no penicillin, and he got an infection from a bicycle, and it killed him. You know, and cut him and then killed him. So that, you know, it was just wild, right? He died like crazy young. But so his mother was a single mother with 4 or 5 boys. All of them were blind except for one. My grandfather, Uncle George. And they, you know, Pop was maybe the second or third oldest. I don't remember, but there was, I remember Uncle Bunny, it was Uncle Vernon, and Andrew, George, and Rusi, or I think Uncle Rusi. So, you know, and so he just, I think that there was some sort of hope. He scared me though. I remember as a child, I was afraid of him in a way because of the blindness. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
I was a little scared, you know, but I loved him. And I remember my mother would go up, and we'd go up and she would read his mail. And, but he was bigger than life too, in the sense that I felt like he didn't let it defeat him. And he would travel, and, you know, him and his wife would come down for the holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas, and they'd get in a cab and he'd use his cane, and he was very independent. You know what I mean? And but he was devastated.
But you had his life to model after, basically.
Yeah, but I didn't tell you this. I forgot to tell you. Yeah, no, but I forgot to tell you this. This was another thing. So my grandfather, he was devastated. This is my mother's father, Pop. When my father was murdered, he kind of lost it. And he tried to commit suicide and jumped out of the window. Second or third story floor. He didn't die, but he fractured and broke a bunch of bones, and it was scary and devastating. And imagine doing this being totally blind.
Right.
Yeah, it was heavy. So, you know, but he survived that, and he lived until I graduated college, and he was so proud of me, and yeah, he just he was amazing. He was amazing, and he would tell you these stories, and just, you know, but he, you know, and he was a masseuse too. I think he got his masseuse license, became a professional masseuse. So he was really good with his hands, and I got that gift from him because I never became a professional masseuse, but if you asked anybody, they'd be like, oh yeah, Eric's a professional. Because I used to give massages to all my coworkers, obviously all my girlfriends, you know, now of course it's only for wifey. But, you know, like I just have healing hands, and it's really, I think, a gift from God, you know. I always, and I remember even in high school, I would massage girls that would sit in front of me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I was, but it was a great gift to have, you know. So.
Okay, so take me through the journey of high school. So now you were running track. You're doing really good at that. So what happens next?
High school was up and down. I mean, I felt good. I had a lot of friends, popular. You know, I had a couple of girlfriends, a couple of heartbreaks. I know one of them was like really devastating for me. I was like, oh, so depressed and heartbroken. You know, you think the world's ending, and, you know, this girlfriend breaks up with you. But I had a lot of fun, a lot of friends, all different cultures, religions, everything. Just a lot of fun, great memories. But you know, I do remember it being hard because it was hard for me to face my own disability. And I think if I would have, it would have been easy for me. I should have gotten extended help for the SATs, even in high school, because of my vision. You know, I was really borderline legally blind. I didn't get declared legally blind until sometime in my college. And then I finally got the help, and it really helped me academically because I was always smart. But, you know, you can't do good on a test when you are timed and you're a slow reader because of your poor vision. You know what I mean? It's not possible. So, you know what I mean? And that was my fault and my mom's fault. And, you know, and I needed more help and more assistance. And so that was difficult. And so my grades would go up and down. If I had a teacher that cared and I liked them and I could tell they liked me or cared, I'd get an A or a B. If I had a teacher that was kind of like BS and just whatever, and you know, and I didn't think they liked me or cared, I'd get a C or a D. So I was a very average student, but then I would excel when it was right, you know. So I wound up graduating. I went to a community college, Sullivan County Community College, upstate New York, in Loch Sheldrake, New York. It was a great experience. It was tough. It was a lot of tough kids. You know, kids from Long Island who've never seen a black kid. I had kids from different places upstate New York, didn't know black people. Then I had kids coming from the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Queens. Some of them from like the hood, who, you know, were different from me, but, you know, but we got along. You know, like it was a melting pot, but it felt like a little bit of, and this is not a knock on community college, but it felt like 13th and 14th grade. Does that make sense?
Totally.
But it was a great experience. And I think after I broke up with my girlfriend, or she broke up with me, then I just put everything into work. Got on the dean's list. And it was the first time that I started really excelling in school. I had like a G point, my grade point average.
What were you majoring in?
So for the associates, it was just, you know, liberal arts. You know, I didn't like focus on anything else. And I wound up getting a 3.7 and then like a 3.9 my sophomore year. I made the dean's list. The first year, I think I had struggled with like a 2.4 and a 2.7 or something, you know, whatever. And so then I really excelled once the girlfriend had broke up with me, and I was just all about my books. I would go to school, stay in the library, and then when I would come home to my, you know, we had little apartments off campus. It was then I could just have fun and party because I didn't come home to do work. I did all my work at school, and they had a little cafeteria, and I would eat there. And I would come home, and when I came home, it was time to play Madden and Tecmo Bowl and listen to music and drink and party with all my friends. But when I was at school, I just stayed there and did my work and I grinded it out. And I was so proud of myself because I realized that, hey, if you really focus and concentrate and apply yourself, you can get honors and all A's and you're really smart. And you know what I mean? Because I had self-esteem issues about that because I would question my own intelligence or smarts, you know what I mean? Because I didn't really have, I guess, that wherewithal to understand that, like, no, you're not dumb. You just are disabled and you need more time and a little bit more assistance or, you know, whatever.
Exactly.
So then when I got to Maryland, my grades went down again because my grandmother, my junior year of college, she passed away. And I didn't find out until late. I couldn't go to the funeral. It was devastating. And I hadn't spoken to her in a while. So that was really hard. This is my father's mother. And that was difficult. And, you know, this was just right when Magic announced he had AIDS. And it was my first year transferring from a 2-year school to a major university of 35,000 kids. So it was almost like being a freshman again, even though I was a junior. And so I was in the dorm and on my floor, yeah, there was a couple of the juniors, but there was a lot of freshmen and sophomores. So then my friends were like everything. But I transferred down there with one of my good buddies, a good friend of mine who's Jewish, Brian Verjansky, and we transferred together. We were roommates. And we just knew Maryland was going to be the spot, and we loved it. And then I met some lifelong, just best friends, and it was a great experience. My major was radio, television, and film, but it was more behind the scenes. So I made a film. I was writing commercials, learned about how to do that. I mean, it was all like behind the scenes, learning how to, you know, do things. I had a little radio show at college. And then I started to get into really heavy. I was already into it in like the end of high school, rhyming. I was an MC. And I was getting better and better and really good. And then I started to, and I wanted to be a professional, record an album and all that stuff. So then in college, I started to rhyme on the radio show. We had a big popular radio show called WMUC, the Soul Controllers. It was these three DJs, Malcolm, Jason, and Jason, these two white boys and this black kid, Malcolm. And they were like, and it was a dope show because down in that area, people would come down, all the rappers, and they would go to the main radio station, the DC WPGC, but they would also swing by the college radio station at the University of Maryland, the MUC, WMUC. And I'm talking, everybody came down there, the Fugees, but I wasn't really feeling them, so I missed meeting Lauryn Hill, and I kicked myself to this day. But I mean, from everybody from Smith and Wesson and Black Moon and OC and the Fugees, Common, Nas, when he came out in '94, it was right when I was graduating. But like all these different rappers, KRS-One came, and I spoke with him and met with him. Like so many people would come through, and I got to meet and rhyme with different people. And then there was this one rapper who used to come to the station a lot, and I met him, and we started becoming friends and rhyming together. And then we lost touch, and years later, he got on, and his name is Cannabis. I don't know if you know the rapper Cannabis.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cannabis and I. So me and him used to hang out and rhyme together. And but then we, lost touch, and I never caught up with him once he got on or whatever. But it was dope. When I saw him, I was like, okay, well, I know Cannabis, and me and him used to battle and go at it. Like if he can get on, and I can get on, But I made albums, I recorded stuff. I never made it big. I was more independent. I, didn't get a big label to pick me up or anything. But I wasn't also willing to sell my soul. And, I was determined to rhyme, like.
What do you mean you wasn't willing to sell your soul?
Well, so I wasn't going to rhyme about misogynistic, materialistic, self-hating Negro lyrics. I was going to rhyme more conscious, like the people that taught me: Rakim, KRS-One, A Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul, people like that. That's who Slick Rick, that's who I grew up listening to, Grandmaster Caz, Melly Mel. I am, what I call myself is, like, I am hip hop, like KRS-One would say, but I am the younger brother of the originators of hip hop. Being born and raised in New York, I grew up with and around hip hop. My stepbrother Jonas went to grade school at KRS-One. My sister, I remember the parks, the DJs in the park, and being around the formation in the early days of hip hop. And for me, being born in 1970, and being at that time, it was, hip hop was blooming and growing up as I was growing up. And so hip hop was my first love. And, I would never, I think you rhyme for a reason. And I knew at a young age that hip hop would influence and take over the world. Obama was president because of hip hop. Hip hop is the most influential thing and culture in the world. And it started in the Bronx and young Black youth in America. And it, unlike jazz, the hip hop culture, we are willing to fight for it, that we won't just let white people and Europeans take it and steal it, and then you don't even know the history like they did with jazz. You know what I mean? And hip hop, it's the African drum that comes from Africa and the islands through the triangle trade, and Kool Herc was Jamaican, you know what I mean? And that's the whole formation from Kool Herc to Africa Bambaataa. We were down with Zulu Nation. One of my good friends, his father helped take Bambaataa and Zulu Nation to London and to spread hip hop to Europe. You know what I mean? So that's my history. I grew up around Crazy Legs, Rocksteady Crew. The park that I grew up playing basketball in, 2 blocks from my house, that's Rocksteady Park. That's hip hop history. So I am literally a part of hip hop culture and hip hop history. And hung out with Crazy Legs and all these different guys. And we used to battle on the streets and breakdancing and up-rocking, b-boying and tagging, graphing, graffiti. You know what I mean? So that's how I grew up, and that's who I am, that's how I define myself. It's through hip hop, really, before anything.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you guys are doing radio at this point. You're meeting all these celebrities. And so what's going on after that?
So as I'm doing my major, and my buddy at the time was one of my best friends, and he's an amazing MC and an actor and sketch comedy artist. And I was into sketch comedy. He was in LA, and him and one of our other buddies from my neighborhood. My neighborhood is super talented. Like so many cats in my neighborhood are we're all like, my whole crew is like crazy talented and just doing it. And so one of my good buddies, I got a bunch of friends that are stand-up comics, but one of them is very successful. His name is Greer Barnes. He was in The Joker with Batman recently, and he's done a whole bunch of stand-up, been on Letterman and Stephen Colbert and this and that. But him and one of my best friends, Randy Cameron, they were on this sketch comedy show called Hardcore Television. That was in the early 90s, and they had a sketch called The Fly Fishing Jam. So they were doing that while I was at Maryland. And then Randy was going out to LA to get on and try to get a deal rhyming. So he was hanging out with, what's her name? Fergie's crew and will.i.am. I always forget the group's name. Let's get it started.
Black Eyed Peas.
Black Eyed Peas. But at the time, they were called At Bat Clan. So he was hanging out with them and rhyming with them, and there were different producers and artists and this and that. And so things were happening and yada, yada, yada. And so I was going to graduate college and fly out there and go chill in an apartment with him. And we were, going to be doing, rhyming and pursuing acting and commercials and comedy. And then a couple things happened. They had auditions in New York City for In Living Color. And so me and two of my buddies, who are stand-up comics to this day, Sean Savoy and Ashoka Thomas, we decided to go to New York, and they were going to stay at my place and my mom's, and we were going to go audition for In Living Color. And what they had was very strict, right? You could only do original characters. If they recognized any of the characters from In Living Color, Saturday Night Live, any of the sketch comedy shows, immediately they were going to cut you, right? You had to do 3 characters. You had 60 seconds or 90 seconds for each character. The casting directors stone-faced you, grilled, and you're sitting in a room. It was like down at by West 4th Street. There's a big casting place there, and they were holding auditions there. And I remember when we went, my boys, they initially didn't make the cut. And then they were kind of like, oh, come on, we can do better. Let us try again. So then they got a call back. When I did mine, it was so scary because I have never done stand-up to this day. I'm thinking about doing it when I turn 50 because it's, something challenging myself, right? I've always been into sketch comedy, but not stand-up. I don't know why, it was just my thing. I just, never had the desire really, but, I think I could do it because I do sketch comedy and characters. So at this audition, I came up really online, and it came from some of the characters just kind of like hanging out at the bars, being drunk, and on campus in Maryland, we would have a bus, and I would just be on the bus, like 30, 40 people, and I would just break into a character, and I'd have the whole bus, I didn't even know most of the people, in tears, cracking up, crying, and I would just create these characters, and so I'm doing these characters. I had this farmer Ted Dredd, this Rastafarian who lived in Nebraska, and on the side of the road, he had a gas station and a convenience store and all this stuff. And he was just selling everything from gasoline to joints to diapers to, stickers, whatever you needed, he had, And then I had all these characters, right? And I came up with them. And so I did the audition. They loved it. I got a call back. So my friends, we went back, right? And then they had their second, they didn't make it, Sean and Ashoka. Sorry, fellas, I gotta tell the truth, and they didn't get the second call back. I got another call back. And then audition again. I switched up the characters a little, want to freak them a little, and then I got another call back. And this time it was with more casting directors and more people. And I was meeting more higher ups. So then they sent me a letter, and they told me, well, you're gonna be selected and flown out to Los Angeles to meet with the producers of In Living Color. and you'll have a chance to audition for this show, which was crazy. Because then at the time, my boy Greer was out there, and he was like, maybe, you know, not in sketches, but like doing kind of like some background, but he was just around the set of him, excuse me, of A Living Color. But Jamie Foxx was there at this time, J-Lo. But remember, the last year or two, Damon Wayans had gone, and not Marlon, you know, and I went to high school with Sean Wayans, SW1. He went to humanities with me. And Marlon went to LaGuardia, so I already knew Sean and Marlon, right? And, whatchamacallit, Keenan Ivory Wayans, the creator and the producer, he had left the show. So 1994, May is when they announced the fall schedule, the TV schedule. And before we were flown out to meet with the executives, and before I graduated from the University of Maryland, they announced the fall schedule and they canceled A Living Color.
Wow.
And I was devastated. I was like, are you kidding me? Because I was going to go out to LA and kill it.
Almost famous.
I was going to kill it.
And everybody, like in Living Color, okay, because we do have some youngins watching it.
Oh,
okay?
yeah, some youngins, yes.
So we got to let them know, like, in Living Color was the shit. And
the
like
best sketch comedy show ever. Better than Saturday Night Live.
Ever. And In Living Color was so big that like 90% of the people that was on In Living Color are huge.
Yes, stars. From Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey was living out his damn car. He was homeless.
Jamie Foxx, you know,
the Wayans, all of the Wayans brothers.
Yeah.
And their kids.
Yeah, the family is super talented. And, you know, and it's just, so that happened, right? So it's like this close call. Then Spike Lee had auditions at Maryland, and he was doing, I guess, like a lot of places for clockers. And so I got down to like the final, like 3 to 5 people for clockers, but Mekhi Phifer got the role. So then I had these 2 close calls. I'm graduating, and then I said to myself, okay, maybe I won't go to LA. I'm gonna go to New York, I'm gonna study acting, become a professional actor, and start, you know, getting some stuff together, and then go to LA. But then my mom got breast cancer. So in the midst of studying acting in New York, so I decided not to go to LA because she couldn't, like, you know, she owned a building and I had to manage it and take care of it. So I had to shovel the snow, take out the garbage, sweep. So I became like the groundskeeper, basically, of the building. And so then I got a little studio apartment in the building, and I just decided to get on TV and act in New York. I became a member of the Screen Actors Guild. I was in SAG, I was in AFTRA before they merged. So I had earned my way into 2 unions, and then the 3rd union, Actors Equity, because I did a play called Small Potatoes. It was loosely based on this famous play by Nikolai Gogol called The Inspector General. And the play did so good, we got a good review in the New York Times, and I had my picture in the New York Times. It got reviewed and got my equity card. And I was on Broadway on Theater Row, on 42nd between 9th and 10th at the John Houseman Theater. And we had like an 8-week run, working 6 days a week. It was amazing. It was a blessing. This was in, what was that, 99, 2000. So that was at that time when I got in that union. I got in a Screen Actors Guild, and so I worked on anything shot in New York from like 94 to like 2001. I was on it.
So what do you mean you worked on? Because I know you were doing things behind the scenes.
So what happened was I segued into writing, but I stopped doing like TV production, and I didn't do any of that. I became really an actor. So I did a lot of student films, I did independent films, I did background acting, I did stand-in work, I did stunt work. I even did a stunt on, I was a stand-in for Savion Glover on Bamboozled, one of my favorite movies from Spike Lee, because that's one of his deepest movies, right? And so I worked on Bamboozled, was hanging out with Tommy Davidson and Michael Rappaport, who we knew from New York. He went to high school with my buddy from McBurney. So I'm hanging out with Tommy Davidson from In Living Color, Michael Rappaport.
Okay, hold on. I'm sorry. because I so how was Tommy back then? Because I've met Tommy and I'm not gonna lie, when I met him, it was probably like 10 years ago, and I was not feeling Tommy. Okay. I was
Okay.
like,
I'm going to tell you the truth about a lot of people. Tommy Davidson was the nicest guy that you could ever meet. He was mad chill. Damon Wayans was not nice to me at all, and neither was Jada Pinkett. She was nasty. And I'm sorry, I'm
really?
just telling the
Jada?
truth.
Jada seems like everybody's homegirl.
Jada was nasty. No eye contact, wouldn't say a word. And it wasn't like I was some groupie or just regular background. I was like inside the intimacy of the crew because I was a stand-in for Savion. Me and Savion became friends. We were chilling, hanging out. So me, Savion, Michael Rappaport, Tommy Davidson, a couple other people, mad cool. You remember Kid and Play from Kid and Play came to the set. He was hanging out, chilling with Play. Um, it was cool. So I was a stand-in on that movie. I worked on some other Spike Lee films, but that was a really great experience. I got my SAG card working on The Devil's Own with Harrison Ford and Brad Pitt and Ruben Blades. And Ruben Blades and Harrison Ford, the nicest guys ever, treated me like a professional. And I worked on One Life to Live. That's how I got my after card. I got in that union. I just did a lot of soap operas, TV shows, some commercials, a bunch of different things. So enough to be a working actor in a union and pay my rent and my bills, but not enough to be rich and famous.
Like,
But it was a great experience and a blessing.
Let us know what actor unions are. Why is that
So when you work on a project or a film and you're hired as non-union, back in the days when I was working, my mom hated it. I would work on New York Undercover all the time. And actually, you might remember, because New York Undercover was the show. Everybody black watched it. Nobody was watching Seinfeld. We was all watching New York Undercover Thursday nights. And I was on one of the biggest episodes when Ice-T was the drug dealer. And me and my buddy were like these two drug dealers on the corner, and Ice-T, we were like down with his crew, and then Malik Yoba, came up to me and my boy. And I remember, like, it was so funny because Malik Yoba was mad cool too. But I remember my phone, and this is before cell phones. This is like 95, 96 maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, my phone was blowing up. People like screaming, "I saw you on the Internet!" Like people I hadn't spoken to from high school or college, and not really so many high school friends, but a lot of college friends who had just graduated, hadn't seen them in 2 years. They're like, "Yo, you doing your thing? I saw you." It was really cool, And in my head, I'm like, "Oh, thanks, I'm just grinding."
I wish you would have told Malik Yoba to put on some damn chapstick when we was
No,
kids.
that's what everybody said. I know. Malik
Malik
was Mr. Smooth, but he needed some chapstick severely, right?
I mean, every episode, I thought he had a condition. I was like, is this shit genetic? Like his lips always look
I know, everybody. But he was really a good brother. Michael D. Lorenzo wasn't as friendly, but Malik was mad cool. But it was a great show, and it was a blessing, and I made a lot of money on it. Not in the beginning, because this is what I can say, when you're non-union, you get paid slave wages. It's increased now, but back then, when I worked on Law and Order and New York Undercover, I would get like $35 a day, and you'd have to wait 2 weeks to get a check in the mail for $35. Okay? Then I put in my dues, and that's why I tell people, like, I'm 49 and I haven't been professionally acting for years, but I still keep my SAG card. And this year I actually got chosen to be on the nominating committee for the SAG Awards. So I will be able to vote and nominate. You vote when you're a member on the project, but I will be the one to help nominate the actual TV shows and films for the Screen Actors Guild this year. So I'm really honored and excited to do that. But I will never give up my SAG card because I work like a slave, like a dog to get it. I will tell you, people don't understand television work, film work. You're putting in 12, 16-hour days. You're grinding. You're working at 4. I mean, I'm going to set, mind you, I'm going to set 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. I can't see in the dark. I'm traveling to New York City to sets all over Brooklyn, Queens, New York by myself, right? And I'm traveling to these sets, and you there? Oh, I don't know if something happened. I guess April will come back on. I don't know if something happened. I guess April will come back on. 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 I guess Hopefully it's still recording. April. So if it is still recording, I will say stay tuned because I'll tell you some more. But I was working on these sets and grinding and working hard and all these things and just enjoying the industry. Coming back on and make sure she are you coming back on? Question mark. I think I lost you. Hey Siri, read my text messages. Hey Siri, read my text messages.
You have new messages from April and Don Kennard. April said, I'm trying to reconnect now. Would you like to reply?
No.
Don Kennard said, that's amazing. A face with open hands emoji, how wonderful. Hard work pays off, cuz. It's all coming together for you. Very excited for you. Good luck today. Love you. Would you like to reply?
No. Let's see. April. Love, can you come real quick? We got disconnected. She's trying to reconnect it, but I don't know what I need to do.
So when you are importing file, oh, she's right there.
She's right where?
Isn't she right here? Here, hold on.
Okay, you just got it back. Okay.
Here, okay.
I don't know what the heck happened. I think it just kicked us off.
Yeah. Let me see if we can get the screen back up.
Wait a second.
Like now. Okay.
Record.
So you're on the committee.
Yes, I'm on a nominating committee. So it's just a nice honor. And they just announced the Oscars are being bumped back to April 25th, I think. And they'll continue or consider films till February this year, which normally I think is till November. And then I'm assuming I'm going to get an email, I think I got one yesterday or today, that the Screen Actors Guild, which is normally a couple of weeks before the Oscars, will probably be moved back to early April or the very end of March now. So I'm looking forward to it. It means I've got a lot of TV shows and films to watch. And it's hard, right? With this pandemic, there's not as many productions, but they're starting to get back to doing things slowly. And there were things that were already done, and then you're honoring stuff that was done from last year anyway, you know what I mean? So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. So I take that honor very seriously, and I've loved being an actor. I miss being on a film set. One quick funny story, I was on Deaf to Smoochie, really funny comedy with Robin Williams and Ed Norton. And I was just a background actor in a methadone clinic. We were pretending that we were like, just like kind of like high on methadone, and we were trying to like, get rehab or whatever. And I just kept doing some crazy funny faces and funny stuff. And the director of the film was Danny DeVito, the legend, little short Danny DeVito, who's married.
We know who Danny is.
Okay, married to Rhea Perlman, who I worked on a movie with her. Was it not Swift Justice? Something I forgot. It was a great movie I worked on with her. I had to tell Fredro from Onyx. He tried to tell me that Onyx was the best hip hop group ever, and I had to like shut him down and like, nah, sorry, homie. So me and Fredro were talking and stuff on that set, going at it a little bit, and hanging out with Terrence Howard, who I worked on with The Best Man, and also on that movie as well. But so Deaf to Smoochie, Ed Norton was playing like a Barney character. So he's playing the guitar and he's like, let's get off this smack because it's not good for your back, and trying to be funny, right? And he was trying to come up with stuff, and he was sort of improvising. But, it wasn't working, and it wasn't that funny. And, but meanwhile, while he's doing that, I'm doing all this stuff, and I had everybody around me in tears, cracking up. Danny DeVito himself, the director, comes up to me and he says, I want you to know, I've been watching you. I gotta say, you're really funny. And I was like, thank you, Mr. DeVito. I appreciate that. And, and Ed Norton was hating. He was so jealous. I was like, I love telling that story because it's just so funny, man. DeVito was giving me love, and Ed Norton was jealous because I was shining. I was a star.
Right?
Okay,
so take us through that journey after. So now we're done with college. We're done the In Living Color thing. So like, what's going on?
Well, I also worked on different sketch comedy shows. So I worked on House of Bugging with John Leguizamo, and we connected on there, whatever. I wish I could have got to work with him more. So I worked on that show. I worked on the second reboot of The Cosby Show. And I knew Felicia, because Felicia Rashad, her son, and I grew up together. His name is Billy Bowles, really cool, like a family member. And so I, for me, like I just loved it. I love doing independent and student films, and sometimes I got to be the leading role. And sometimes I did a film with Luther Vandross' sister, one of the independent films I did. I didn't get to meet Luther, but his sister, before she passed away and before Luther passed, it was very sad. She might have had cancer. Did a film with her. She was so sweet, and that I think that might have got a little noise in Tribeca or one of the film festivals, but it didn't, get to blow up. The director was trying to get it to HBO, but it didn't work out. So then later on, the years went on. I kept doing, different jobs and working with different people, different movies and stuff. And, like now that you know me, you might see certain films and you're like, is that Eric? Wait a minute, you got cut off again. There you go. I was about to say, you got cut off again. What's going on over there?
Okay, so acting is going on, and so we're in college. So what's going on in your personal relationships and everything like that?
Well, as I'm in New York and it's the mid 90s, and then we have, Kurt Cobain dies, Tupac dies, Biggie dies, and I'm rhyming, I'm acting, I'm like grinding through the city. I'm, just dating different women, nothing crazy serious in the mid 90s. I had, a couple of girlfriends here and there. I guess my friends would tease me and say I'm a serial monogamous. I would traditionally, I guess, be with a woman maybe 6 to 9 months, most 12 months, and then we'd break up, whether it was me or her or mutual. Some great relationships. I think I was just learning, right? But I always knew that I wanted to be married and have children. And, I tell people, and I'll tell your audience, you watch what you speak for, because I used to always talk about having twins. I was like, oh, it'd be dope to have the Taylor twins. Well, years later, I've got the Taylor twins. So, so you just have to watch what because I tell people universal law, words have power. So speak positive, speak healing, speak success and victory. And I teach this in my coaching program, but it's biblical, but it's a universal spiritual law. It's life. And you have to speak life and success. And I teach it to my children now. I teach it with my clients. But I even knew it back then, because I tell people all the time, unfortunately, the people that killed Tupac and Biggie were Tupac and Biggie, because they only spoke and rhymed about death. And when you do that, that energy will come to your doorstep. It really does. So you have to speak success and victory, self-love, and I know when I went to California in 99 and I connected with my half sister, and her name is London Taylor. She passed away when we first moved out to Arizona in 2011, so rest in peace. But she helped lead me to Christ. And, that was just an amazing time. And I was out there auditioning and trying to act, and I was staying with my good buddy Ashoka, who's a stand-up comic out there, for a bit. And then I stayed a partial time with my half-sister. I was meeting with agents and stuff. And it was just, it was the holy setup. I didn't plan on becoming a Christian or going out there and all this stuff happening, it just started happening. And I started going to my sister's church, and Sheila E. goes to her church, and I met Sheila E. and hanging out with her and some other people. And it was just cool. And I just, and just one night I was at Bible study, and it just all came full circle. And I just surrendered and submitted and turned my life over to Christ. And it was just a beautiful time. It was February of 99, and then I got back.
So what does that mean? You surrendered. What does that mean?
So I became a born again Christian, and so I declared Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. And I repented for my sins, and I accepted Christ in my heart, and became a full-fledged Christian. And got into the Bible. I got baptized in April, and then the next week I flew back home to New York. I spent about 4 or 5 months in LA. It was life-changing, not just becoming a Christian, but it was life-changing just in so many different ways, because I got a great bond and relationship with my half-sister, who was from my father, but I didn't grow up with her. I didn't find out about her till my 18th birthday. She called my house one day and was like, can I please speak to Elise Taylor? I was like, Elise Taylor doesn't live here anymore. And she's like, well, could you just tell her I was calling? It has to do with her father. And I said, well, okay, her father's my father, so whatever you have to tell her, you could tell me. And she's like, well, are you ready for a long story? And she told me the story about how her mother and my father met, and da-da-da-da. She was born and raised in LA, and come to find out, my mother knew about her and never told me.
Oh my God.
And my mother, I tell you, my life is a movie. And then my mother encouraged my father to take care of her, because my half-sister London, her mother committed suicide because she was so devastated that she could not have my father. And she was dealing with issues and depression and different things. So and then that was like 70, I guess, or maybe did she do that after? I don't know, maybe she did it after, I can't remember. But so she grew up with no parents, and then she got molested by her uncle. her mother's,
So
I guess, brother.
she's like living a parallel life with her
Life is-
sister.
Yeah, got molested by her uncle, I think starting from the age of 3 or something. It was crazy. So
And so how old were you at this point when you got introduced to your sister?
I met her at 18, and then we really reconnected. She came to New York, and I remember we went to this Chinese restaurant, went out to dinner, and me and one of my buddies was in town, and my sister and her, my other sister, London, we got together, had a great time. And it was weird, you know? I mean, like, I was excited, but it was so many emotions, you know what I mean?
It is.
Because it also made me feel like, well, my dad cheated on my mom because she was in between us, right? My sister will be 55. I'm turning 50. My sister, London, this past May would have turned 53. So she was right between us, you know? You know, so we got really close starting in 94. She came to my graduation in 94 in Maryland. And that really warmed my heart, you know. She was there, my sister, my little nephew was there. He was only 5, he was born in 89, he's now like 30. So, you know, it was just a great experience. And then we started to bond. And then in 94, I went to LA and wound up staying with her for a while, you know.
And so she introduced you to Christianity.
She did.
So at what point, because you're
my
also...
father was Baptist and my mother was Catholic. And I went to Christian school for preschool and I think kindergarten or pre-K. But then I went to private school to 4th grade. I went to Fieldston. And then, you know, then the rest of the years were like in public school, you know.
So you're like an astrologist.
Yes.
And so is that any contradictory to the Christian religion?
Yes. So,
and how did astrology come about for you?
I've always kind of known about it and been into it. My buddy who is, rest in peace, my buddy Kwame, who is a Taurus, like my sister who passed, and he died a couple of years ago, like 5-6 years ago. I've lost some great people since I've been out here in Arizona. One of my aunts, my best friend, roommate from college, and then my sister, you know. And Kwame and I and my buddy Sean, we got into it a lot in college. But growing up, like I knew that my father was an Aries. I knew I was a Virgo, my sister was a Libra, and my mom was a Taurus. Like we talked about it, even though my mom was devout Catholic, you know, we went to Catholic school, you know, she was a good Catholic school girl. My father was a Baptist. I told you my grandfather was a deacon. My grandmother was all in the church. You know, I still have it. My father had this Aries the Ram thing, you know, so I guess he knew a bit about it and must have believed in it a little bit too. I don't know. But, you know, I knew my stepfather was in it. He was a Virgo and he would talk to me about it. So I just would learn things over the years. And then I started to learn more about it in college, a little bit in high school. And then in college, I got a book. It was like the Bible of astrology. It was this huge book and it breaks down all the signs, but it breaks down like in astrology, we call them deacons, but there's like, so let's say for me, Virgo, right? So you'll go from like August 5th to the 2nd is like Virgo 1, the first deacon. Then the 2nd or the 3rd to like the 10th or 11th is like Deacon 2. And then the 11th to the 18th is Deacon 3. So these are just aspects of each sign. You have 3 parts of the sign, right? And so I would look in the book and I was born on what they call the week of the Enigma. And I read about it and I was reading and I was like, wow, that is so on point. And it was almost like, and as I'm reading it, I look up and I'm like, is there a camera, somebody watching my life, you know? And so I started to just read different things. And then I started to, and I guess I gotta be honest and admit to it, because I only deal in truth. That's my thing. I named my son, my firstborn, William. His name is William Truth Taylor, because there's nothing more important than the truth to me. It's the only thing I deal in. And I started to learn the truth about astrology and how it is in the world, what it is, the science that it is. And really, it's been around for thousands of years before religions were formed, you know what I mean? And so I started to understand, you know, when you study ancient civilizations and you're studying Christianity, and I used to study everything. I've researched, you know, I'm not an expert or a genius, but I did research Buddhism and Five Percenters and the Muslim faith, and I know a little bit about Jewish faith. I'm part Jewish. My mother, her grandfather, his name was Bertram Weiss on my mother's side. So he was Jewish. So my mother's part Jewish, and I'm like 15% Ashkenazi Jew. I did those, ancestry DNA. So I'm part Jewish. I'm Jewish, Bahamian, Black. I'm Nigerian. All these different mixes, right? So. But, when you look at the world and you look at history and you read and you research, you look at humanity, the Jews use the lunar calendar. The Farmer's Almanac uses, in terms of how you plant things, right? It's connected to the lunar calendar. The moon controls the tides of the ocean, right? Everything, as they say, so above, so down below, right? And so I started to see these patterns and connections, and I'm skipping ahead, but as I was starting to understand astrology more back then, I didn't understand it on the deep sense that I do now. But I started through that book to read about each sign and then understand, different things about the signs. And then I started to understand it in a way for meeting and dating women. So like if I met a woman and I knew she was a Libra, like I knew, her erogenous zone. I knew what she liked, how to talk to her, like I knew that for every sign. So then it started to become not like a game, because I was never into deception or being mischievous about it. It was just about a way to relate to human beings, male or female. But then for dating, it was a way to understand the girl I was dating, you know what I mean? And to really understand them emotionally or mentally, you know what I mean? So I dated Geminis, and I dated every sign really, but I would understand understand myself, and then I totally got away from it once I became a Christian, and I let it go. I got rid of that big book, the astrology book, now I wish I didn't, but that's okay, because, you are where you are at different times of your life in different placements. And I don't have regrets. I'm not perfect, but I'm a pure soul and a pure person. I love Jesus, and I still do. And I know that most Christians see it as a sin. Same with the Catholic Church. I was just talking to a new client about that. But she even was talking about, she was like, but the wise men used the stars in the Bible to lead them to the baby Jesus. And I was like, yeah, that's right.
Exactly.
And there's all these correlations. And even Adam's first wife before Eve, Lilith, is mentioned in the Bible, I think only once. But the black moon Lilith is sort of the divine feminine. They call it like the female Pluto. But Lilith, this archetype, we live in a patriarchal system. And what's happening right now, the Me Too movement, the breaking, hopefully, of trying to heal humanity and end racism in America and the world, breaking down these structures of the one percenters, and breaking down the structures of criminal justice reform and politics, right? This is all in the stars. So most astrologers knew this was coming and it was going to happen. Even the pandemic, they didn't know it would be this pandemic, but they knew something was coming, right? Like I knew months ago, after it first came to China, I knew it was coming here because I looked in the chart of China's chart. And the way it was in the 12th house and the 6th house, I knew it was going to spread throughout the world. Right? So there's astrology, and I'll tell you the deal breaker for me. And I've been studying it now on this new level where now I can say I am really a professional astrologer. I'm not the best, I'm growing, but I'm very intuitive. And as a relationship coach and a chronic illness coach, I use it to help my clients, and I've been blessing so many people to really learn about every aspect of their lives. And that's so rewarding for me because my whole life I've been 3 or 4 things, right? I've always been an entertainer. I've always been, and I didn't get into this, after 9/11, I became a teacher. I taught multiple disabled children in the Bronx for Lavelle School for the Blind. So I taught computers, music, art. I worked with kids from ages 3 to 21, Down syndrome, Tourette's, autism, blindness, cerebral palsy, okay? So my
So
heart,
did the teaching lead you to the coaching?
I think in a lot of ways, yeah, but I'll tell you before that, it prepared me to be a caregiver for my mother, Cheryl Taylor, because my mother had brain cancer, breast cancer in 95, metastasized to brain cancer in 2004. And I've been taking care of my mother since 2004. This October will be 16 years, God willing. So, you know what I mean? So I think that school, and this only happened because of 9/11. 9/11 took me to that school because the Screen Actors Guild, we were going to go on strike. So that year, that summer, all the TV shows, commercials, everything was shot like crazy. I worked like 7 days a week that summer, okay, of '01, because we were going to go on strike in October, potentially. 9/11 hit, TV, film, everything shut down. The whole world shut down, right? You remember. And in New York, everything changed. I still had to pay rent in my little studio apartment. And they had so much stuff in the can that nothing was really coming back work-wise till like maybe April, May. So my cousin, I was talking to him, he's like, you got a college degree. Why don't you come up here and teach? And I'm like, come up and teach. He was the head of maintenance at the school. He's like, come up and teach. Wait, what are you talking about? He's like, now meanwhile, I had already been teaching acting at Children's Aid Society in Greenwich Village. I worked with 3 to 6 year olds, and then I taught, like preschool and all that stuff, right? But then I taught substitute teaching, stuff like that. I always loved kids. I started babysitting kids when I was 10, 11. So younger kids than me, right? Because I was always so mature. And then, and I was also a hustler because I was always about making my own money. I've been working, so, I got my license to work at 14 in New York, you can, but I was working since I was 10. Shoveling snow, babysitting, raking leaves. I was like, I'm getting me my own Jordans, my own fly gear. Like, I was like, you couldn't tell me nothing. So, but I started to teach acting 9 to 11-year-olds at the Children's Aid Society, right? So I had been doing that as I was acting professionally from 94 to like 97, then, 99, all through, right? Then I get to Lavelle after 9/11. And when I was there, those kids just took my heart. My cousin was like, well, come teach up here. And I'm like, okay. So I go, I, apply for the job, they hire me as substitute teacher, I start substituting. These kids are like pulling on my heartstrings, and then they offer me a full-time position. Well, as an actor, you have to grind so hard and make so much money to get tiers of your health insurance. So, I was getting health insurance one year, and then the next year I'd get it, but then I couldn't get dental because you got to make this many thousands, and I made enough to get basic insurance, but not dental, you know what I mean? Just whatever, right? But I was in great health, had no problems, but still, you're getting your teeth cleaned, all those, basic things, right? And so they offered me a full-time position in February I started substituting November '01, and February 2002, I started to work full-time there. Fell in love with the kids, and then I was there until I left to move to Arizona. And that was I left June of 2011. I worked there from '01, late '01 to 2011. So 10 years. And it was hard work, but it prepared me. I didn't know. And see, this is God, this is Jesus, right? And I've never lost my faith, whatever I've gone through in life and, in Christianity, and I'm still a Christian and still love Jesus. But I know that God prepared me through that job, not only to be a stepfather, a father, but a caregiver for my mother. Made me a better human and a better man, because you know what acting is? It was about Eric Taylor, it was about vanity. I'm just growing this back now for my wife, but I used to have long locks past my belly button. I was, always in the gym. I was eating healthy. I was like, my whole thing, I did print modeling. Oh my God. I did a print modeling ad in Japan. I was in a magazine. And I was this is when they first came out with, what year was this? 99, 2000. They first came out with Sony, and we shot by West 4th Street by Tower Records, which is no longer even around. It was famous, right, in New York. And I was the DJ because they came out with the CDs when you could first mix with CDs. Well, I was the ad campaign for that. And so I was in a Japanese magazine, modeling. So I did print modeling, I did acting, commercials, TV, film, theater, stage, all of it, and it was the time of my life. It was a blessing. But I've lived multiple lives. So then you go from there to the teaching, But I was saying, segueing into the coaching, being a chronic illness coach, relationship coach, and astrologer now, my life, and it's in my chart, but my life has always been to entertain, educate, inspire, and heal anyone that comes into my life, and anyone that I meet, and anyone that knows me would say that about me. From people that know me from 3rd grade, 4th grade, from friends I got a couple of people that know me from even before then. That's who I've been my whole life. I've never changed. You know what I mean? I'm a genuine, real person, and I pride myself, and I teach these to my boys. I said, make sure your word is bond and your name is gold. I said, my name, Eric William Taylor, wherever I go, it's respected. And that's in the projects, to the hood, to Wall Street, to Hollywood, to Broadway, to anywhere, to Arizona, New York, because I don't lie. I don't disrespect anybody. I've never hurt a human being. Even my ex-girlfriends, I was respectful with them and still have friendships with a lot of them. Now I'm, obviously being married, it's a different type of, we're not like tight like that, but you know what I mean? But my name, no one can say anything bad about me because I've never done anything bad to any human being. And I pride myself in that. And that's how I live my life. And that's how I try to teach and inspire my family members, but also my clients, in terms of healing them and helping them. Because
I'm sorry. Go ahead. So was your move to Arizona the transition from teaching to coaching?
No, I didn't know what I was gonna do out here. It was really a change for health. Honestly, I was 10 years in. I had 3 eye surgeries. I had a surgery on my wrist. The winter before we left, I fell on black ice and broke my ankle so severely that I was out of work from that January to the last 2 days of June. I crawled back to work to keep my health insurance from my family. And it was, the surgeon was like, you'd have been better off if you had a clean break. It was such a bad fracture. When it happened, I was a block from my job, rushing to get there because my superintendent was like a little Nazi and would stand there at the time clock and, sit there like, oh, you're late. That pressure of not being to work late. And I'm a Virgo, so I was never late for work, but I also couldn't help the MTA and the transit system. So I'd leave my house extra early, but sometimes the trains would get so messed up. And it was a bad winter that year, 2011, and we had crazy snowstorms. It was like our first week back to work after Christmas break, maybe second week back. And it was a bad storm, maybe the first week back. And I just, a block from my job, I went down on black ice and we just found out we were pregnant. This was not with William, it was with another child that we wound up losing. And, which was really difficult. It was hard to have to call Alana. It was so humbling. I broke it so bad, I could not stand up. I called my buddy. He was from Jordan, Mr. Mumani, Malik Mumani, my Muslim brother. And I said, brother man. He used to call me brother man. I was like, brother man, come out here. He's like, what are you talking about? Where are you? And I said, I'm not coming in. He's like, why not? I said, I'm out here on the street. Come with me and help me call the ambulance and sit with me until they come to get me. It's like, I think I broke my ankle. I can't stand up. So he comes out. It's freezing cold. It was like 7 degrees that morning. They pick me up, they take me to the hospital in the Bronx. I'm literally in the emergency room from 9 a.m. I didn't get home to my house in Manhattan, 95th Street, till like 10:30 at night. It was like the worst day of my life. I had to beg for pain medicine. You know what I mean? It was so crazy. And then the orthopedic doctor is coming off for her honeymoon, so it took ever for her to show up. She's showing wedding pictures and this and that. And then she has to come and they have to realign the broken, it was disgusting. And she had to go crack. And then I'm like, ah! And and Alana was home with baby William and my mom and Elijah, my older son. And she felt so bad because she couldn't leave and come. I was just in the hospital for hours and hours and hours. It was torture. But so, it was just a change of life because the humidity in New York, I started having issues with my feet. I have a gift from my father of loose ligaments and flat feet. It was great before 30, and it actually helped to make me a great athlete. But then after 30, loose ligaments and flat feet, it ain't nothing but pain. So then, I'm out here, I'm doing well. Actually, I started to get into sports radio, another career, another thing in my chart. And I was doing 2 different sports radio shows, had a bunch of success, and we were killing it. I'm interviewing. In my first show I was doing with my buddy Edgar Burgos, we're interviewing Fat Joe and Larry Johnson and actor Leon from Cool Runnings. And I interview, Lord Finesse, all these rappers. And everybody in sports, from different, players from, the Knicks. I interviewed Chris Mullin, Hall of Famers, like all this stuff. And then my other best friend from New York, me and my buddy Tal, one of my Jewish friends, we started a show together too called Ray and Tay Today. It was like the first 3 letters of our last names. His last name is Rayside and mine's Taylor. So we were Ray and Tay Today. The other radio show was Hard to Guard Radio. And so we started doing it, and we're interviewing and we're getting all these guests. And the only thing that prevented us from really getting on, neither one of us was a former athlete, and neither one of us was a sports journalist, So, and that was frustrating, but we got an interview with CBS Sports Radio. They actually offered us a job doing sports radio in Arkansas, but we were not going to go to Arkansas, and our wives would have killed us. And they were like, we could send you a job in Arkansas making $25,000 a year. And we're like, we're grown-ups. We can't make $25,000 a year, and we got kids. So we can't do that. But we told them, if you have anything in Arizona, New York, LA, we would consider it. But a couple of years ago, we kind of phased the show out. And every once in a while, we'll do, even during this pandemic, we've done a couple of shows and we bring it up just because we built such a fan base and a following. And, it's, we had John Sally on the show. We had Eric Dickerson, Hall of Fame running back. Randall Cunningham, who's now a pastor. We had him on during the Michael Sam stuff when, being gay and being drafted in the NFL. We had that show. That was really...
And I believe now with social media and all these other podcasts and like all these different outlets, I think it'd be easier to have more of a successful show without the backing of, these
yes, but you know what it is? It's hard to get the financial backing to, because you have to get either advertisements, so you make money from it. And that was the dilemma, you know what I mean? So we were trying to get an interview with ESPN. They showed a little, CBS Sports showed the most interest. NBC and Fox, a little, ESPN a little, but mainly, like I said, CBS Sports offered us an actual job. But, we just couldn't do Arkansas for that little money. But just to show you, like, we were hitting home runs in the minor leagues, basically. We were about our business, like very professional. And from day one, we treated it like we were already on ESPN, because that's my buddy Tal and I, we were friends since like we were 11 or 12. He moved to my block on 95th Street, and we love sports. And that was a huge part of our friendship. I mean, we're friends without it, but that was a big part of our friendship. And our tagline was talking sports with friends. And it's really good. I'll send you an episode. You got to check it out. It's a really good show. But we've talked about a lot of things on that show, from social justice, criminal reform, sexism. We even had people on talking about sex trafficking a year or two ago. Like, we've had some heavy shows and some good stuff. And, and I'm something that I'm really proud of. And it's been a great experience. I've interviewed hundreds of guests between both my shows. We had a huge show with Smush Parker on my other show, Hard to Guard Radio, where Smush Parker was talking about Kobe Bryant. This is, back when he was still playing with the Lakers, and he was bad-mouthing Kobe, and that kind of went viral. And we got in a bunch of magazines and stuff about it and stuff. It was like a huge show, like, 70,000 views. Like, it was like crazy. And like, we got like written up in some stuff, but it's just, it is what it is, but it was a lot of fun. I think we even interviewed Marlon Wayans on the show before, and different people, because my boy Edgar used to work for the Knicks. He was an equipment manager, so he had all the connections, and he would get the guests on and stuff. But when my buddy Ray, my boy Tal, we did Ray and Tay Today, we didn't have his phone book per se, to get all the guests, but we started hustling. Do you know I was pulling in guests, sports journalists and stuff, just from Twitter, just from hustling and grinding on Twitter. I pulled in former athletes just from reaching out, grinding, talking about my sports knowledge, showing them our show, that we were about our stuff, and then connections through friends. And I mean, we've interviewed, Hall of Fame journalists, Al Troutwig, we had him on, and he would do the Olympics. And we were talking about Lance Armstrong before the whole thing with the steroids, with his cycling in the Olympics. We've had some really big hitters on the show and big topics, and so I'm really proud of it. And it was a great experience. But I think what got me into the coaching was my own illness. I got sick before my twins were born, April 2013. I walked outside my front door one day to look for the cable guy who was supposed to come, getting ready for my sports radio show. We were having internet problems. And a gust of wind came and flew in my nose, my mouth. It was like Ghostbusters. And I came inside, told my wife, Alana, I said, baby, I think I'm going to be sick. Because it was such a violation, you know your body and stuff. And I'm very in tune with my body. And the next day I wound up in the ER, thought I was going to die in the bed with a heart attack. Then each day from there on, I got sicker and sicker and wound up with valley fever. And valley fever is in dry areas in Washington, California, Nevada, Arizona, Utah. And it's like a fungus that's in the ground and in the soil. And they say it's like a mixture of, from animals or rats or different things and mixed with all this stuff. And it just, I don't know, it's just a bad fungus. And usually it shows up in your lungs. And the people in those states know how to look for it. And it can attack your lungs, your respiratory system, your joints, body aches. So for me, it didn't go to my lungs. It went to my head and my neck. And it caused constant mucus and inflammation throughout my whole body. It got so bad, April, that I didn't get diagnosed. Western medicine, because my lungs were clear, they didn't think I had valley fever. But meanwhile, each day, my body was producing mucus as if I had the flu. And, the lymphatic system couldn't drain fast enough. So it started like spreading and spewing throughout my whole body. And so that's happening. She's pregnant, the twins. I got William, Elijah, my mom, and, this was 7 years ago now. So this April made 7 years. And I'm getting sicker by the day. You know what I mean? And it was devastating. And so it got so bad that when the twins were born, after the first couple of months, the pain got so bad, I could not physically go like this. I'll make sure you guys can see me. I could not feed my babies with the bottle. So it started to cause inflammation and pain in my neck. My neck got severely stiff. My face was like 5 times the size, full of mucus. I finally, through my acupuncturist, who I think kept me alive, found a woman that was speaking to Alana, my wife, sent me to a naturopathic doctor because nothing was happening in Western medicine. Nobody would help me. The best that they gave me was Percocet, pain medicine, because I was in so much pain just to get out of the bed and to be able to even do my sports radio show or try to do any writing, because I was trying to write a screenplay at the time. I couldn't get out of the bed. I could barely walk. I lived with ice, heat, and Percocet for almost a year and a half. It took 7.
Oh my God, a year and a half this is going on?
Oh my God.
So like, what is your confidence? I mean, as a man, like you got a whole family and like you are really sick. Like
I was destroyed. I was devastated, but I was trying to push through. I called it my own internal Vietnam. I was going through a war because you couldn't see it, but it was all internal. Like I could barely walk. I mean, you know what I mean? So like my kids, I couldn't go trick-or-treating. I couldn't, you know what I mean? Like just everything, like the joint pain. I couldn't walk. During this time, my arches collapsed. I had 2 wrist surgeries. I had carpal tunnel and then another one. I had 4 surgeries on my feet. My arches collapsed. I had my arches lifted. They lengthened my calf muscles. And I had 2 other procedures. Like I went through, I've suffered the last 7 years of my life like nobody's business.
And
like,
so what do you think that you were to learn from
I think for me, it increased my faith. It made me never question God, never made me question Jesus.
How is that? I mean, because you were sick for a long time, and then it's like
because I realized it made me look within, because I've been trained to do this my whole life, right? I've already suffered. Suffering was not new to me, right? I've mastered suffering. The first 30 years of my life were like, it was hard as hell. So, it just reconfirmed how tough I was, how strong I was, and I could overcome and handle anything. Because you could survive this. Like there were times where I did not know if I thought I had a brain tumor. I had an MRI. I was scared. I thought I could be dying. Some people do die from valley fever. I finally did get this diagnosis from a naturopathic doctor, but that was all Eastern medicine. So guess what? It took out all my savings, drained all my money, put us in financial hardship. It was devastating, and it was hard because friends didn't understand, people couldn't understand. I had put a post on Facebook because when I went to this naturopathic doctor, they put me on diflucanazole. Within a week of being on diflucanazole, and I did a garlic IV. I'm having IVs in my in my vein, garlic IV. A week of on this medicine, I was able to get off the Percocet. And I had doctors treat me like I was some freaking junkie and just so disrespectful. I could smack the mess out of them. Because I'm like, you don't know me. Like, I'm taking this Percocet. I came to them to see if they can numb the nerves in my neck to take away the pain, right? I'm not coming to get more medicine. I'm trying to get off this crap. And Alana would get mad at me because I would undertake the medicine and suffer in the pain. But I knew before this whole outbreak broke out, I knew the strength of that medicine. And I said, baby, I don't want to
cause an addiction. The very way they're treating you, you can actually become.
And I said to her, I don't want to get addicted, right? This stuff is no joke. And I knew it. You see, I know my body, and I've always been very connected and intuitive to my body, to nature, to everything, right? And I knew when I took it, I'm like, ooh, this is some stuff. Now, I could never take Vicodin because that was so strong and it made me loopy. I had it one time after surgery, and but at this point I've had multiple surgeries. Now I'm up to 13 surgeries, but at this point, before these 6, I guess I was at like 7 surgeries in. My wrist, I had a deviated septum, and then eye surgeries. So I been through some pain. I had a cyst and torn ligaments in my wrist from lifting up kids out of wheelchairs and putting them in standers and this and that. And years later, it used to just be, oh, call the men. It was like 4 men at my job, right? And then we started all breaking down, messing up our backs. And then they finally changed the policy, my stupid principal and superintendent, that it should just be any 2 humans need to lift a child out of a wheelchair into a stander, not just one man, because it should just be me doing it. That's not good. You can't lift a disabled child who's swinging their arms or in a wheelchair.
Oh, definitely not. Yeah.
Oh my God, it was so bad. I still have back pain, still have issues with my wrist. I still have permanent numbness in my finger. Thank God for typing, because my handwriting was always terrible. They said, you got to either be famous or a doctor with the handwriting I had, And I said, well, I'm pretty much famous. I've been famous my whole life, So, and I said, I said, that's okay. I said, I can type or whatever, because I got permanent numbness in my right hand and I'm a righty, But so, I went on with these surgeries, but literally I stopped the Percocet. And I just wanted to go back to all these people. I'm like, see you dumb MFs. I'm nobody's junkie. You don't know me. I'm nobody's addict. I was a husband, a son, a father, suffering in pain, trying to function for my family the best that I could, so I could help my kids get ready for school, or give them a bath at night, or try to be a loving husband and support. I'm just trying to exist. So it was that real and that bad. But thankfully I got off that. I started to do anything and everything. I did leech therapy. So you put leeches on your body, and they have a homeopathic medicine in them. This is God's first medicine, right? Like bloodletting. And it's called the Heragine. They sell them in Long Island and North Carolina, only 2 places, I think, in America, right? And they ship them in different places in the country. And so the therapist at this place, he would get the leeches. I think he got his from North Carolina. And he would put leeches. I had shaved my head. He put leeches on the back of my head, on my neck, on my liver, my kidney, different places, my feet. I had inflammation through all out my body, and the mucus and the drain. And I went to, my knee was hurting so bad, I went to my orthopedic doctor out here, and I said, I think I need knee surgery. Something's wrong with my knee. He's like, no, your knee is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. He goes, that's the valley fever. He goes, unfortunately, with people with melanin, which is what most people really should know, is really our carbon, right? Our melanin is really carbon. And so what happens is, when you are Black, Asian, Latino, the valley fever with Caucasians, it will tend to stay in your lungs. With people of color, it can spread throughout the body. So it went everywhere. And if I've noticed as I was doing my sports radio show, it started to mess with my speech, because as an MC and as an actor, I never make a mistake with my words. I never have issues recalling something. You know what I'm saying? I still memorize my rhymes from 97, 98 that I've written. You know what I'm saying? My brain is like a computer. I've trained my brain for mortal military combat. I can verbally destroy any human being with my words. That's what the training that I've gone through, right? I am a trained assassin with my mouth as an MC, okay? So when I started to go through this and I'm doing my show and I couldn't find words or couldn't remember something, some sports stat, or, I was like, oh my God, I was having brain fog. I mean, I went through it and it was scary as hell. And I thank the Lord every day. And I thank my wife because she's been the champion, taking care of me and the family. My oldest son had to step in and help feed the babies when they were, after, because I was okay the first couple of months, but by like month 5 or 6, the pain was so severe. I could hardly.
And then, we went through this for a year and a half. That's a long freaking time, dude.
It was actually like, I think it was like, it might have even been 19 months, to be honest. It was brutal.
What I love about, these monumental turning points in your story is that, like, you could have totally went left with that, because most people, especially when they're plagued by illnesses that are painful, that is one of the first things to go is faith, and we want to blame God.
Yeah.
And so for you to keep that strength and actually have your faith get stronger shows a lot of strength of character. And even, earlier in life, dealing with death and witnessing abuse and, these terrible behaviors that adults do, you delved into sports, you had your music and you used very creative outlets instead of going down these destructive paths.
And writing. I think I had great teachers too. I had a teacher in 8th grade that I wrote my first I wrote a murder mystery, I think 7th or 8th grade in our little creative writing class. And it inspired me and it was so cool. And I had the plot and story and, and she encouraged it. And then I remember Mr. Fleisick in high school, he taught Shakespeare. And I remember, I loved Othello because, he was a Moor, he was Black, so I got into Shakespeare and Othello and Macbeth and Hamlet and, you know what I mean, and A Midsummer Night's Dream. And, and so it's, I think good teachers can be really inspiring too. And
definitely.
My African-American studies teacher in high school and also in college, Rhonda Williams, it was, I majored in radio, television, and film. My minor was English, and I almost had enough credits. I needed 1 or 2 classes, but I wasn't trying to stay any longer. But I almost had a double minor because I took enough classes for African American studies and learned so much and wrote so many amazing papers. And, it's just, you have to, anybody's life, anybody's journey, there's so many people to appreciate and thank. And, and I'll always be indebted to my sister London for, just teaching me the word and really that connection with Jesus. But I think it was always instilled from my grandparents, and growing up around Baptist grandparents and my father. But I think I drifted away from it because I didn't feel that connection when my mom would take me to the Catholic Church per se. And, it was a beautiful experience, We've had a rough time trying to find home churches out here. We dealt with a lot of prejudice and racism in Arizona and a lot of racist churches. And so that kind of pulled us away. But we would just do Bible study at home and read the word at home to our children. And, so we found ways to still practice and continue and still do, I think what got me into the coaching was just finding a way to transition to see how I could, build a new career, start to make money and use my natural gifts and talents. And with the chronic illness, I suffered a chronic illness. So who's better to guide people through that than someone who suffered it, but then also was a caregiver for hundreds of disabled children and my own personal mother, right? Dealing with cancer, dealing with chemotherapy, radiation, the proper diet, helping someone when they regurgitate, being with multiply disabled, and children with mentally retardation, autism, all that stuff. You know what I mean? So I've walked this life. I've walked this life of service, and so to transition that to that, and then even with the relationship coaching, which I was doing since I was like, 11, 10, even, younger ages, and then a teenager with my friends, people always would come to me for advice.
So talk a little bit more about this chronic illness. You said, is it like a part of your coaching practice? Or?
Yeah, so I do relationship coaching, chronic illness coaching, and astrology. And then I can, depending on the client and their desires, because I respect a lot of people aren't into astrology. So I don't use it for every client. It's only for people. I have some clients who just come to me for astrology, getting birth charts done, synastry relationship charts done, right? And then I have clients who I just work with relationship coaching, and I have the Elevators to Marriage, which is my program, which is 11 floors. And I take people through the steps of unlearning, right? Because this is the spiritual homework we're supposed to do in our sort of 22 to 32, right? And that time where the cerebral cortex is still forming, which is between 25 and 32. So legally, you're an adult at 18, 21. That's haberdashery, that's BS. You really, and it's more women start really adulthood at 25. And then for men, it kind of lingers in a little bit later because men are slower than women in terms of really your cerebral cortex forming. And this is, the functioning part of your brain still forming in your medulla oblongata, really from 25 to 32. And that coincides with your Saturn returns in astrology. So legally, if it was up to me, I would say no one should start dating until 25, and most people shouldn't get married until at least they hit 29 when their Saturn returns. So, with my coaching, I help people in a myriad of ways. My program really is about unlearning what your parents, society, the school system, our government, high school, college, elementary school, have your siblings, cousins, aunts, uncles, what they've all put on you. Keep the positive, but let go of the negative. Let go and unlearn that and start to be introspective, start to self-analyze, because a lot of people a lot of people can be functioning billionaires, right? You could be Anthony Bourdain, Kate Spade, they committed suicide. They had no real reason, but we don't know what the pain they were suffering with inside. Heath Ledger, right? Brittany Murphy, all these different people. People suffer through so much pain in life, but if you don't do the spiritual homework, you don't do the introspection, you don't take the time to really develop and learn that inner intimacy, but self-love, right? You can't truly love another if you don't love yourself. And I know you talk about this too with your programs, and it's so true. And once we can really have self-love, then we can really have that godly, right, fruits of the spirit from Ephesians and that agape love and really love others unconditionally. But you've got to love yourself first. You know what I'm saying? And it comes from loving God, loving yourself. But forgiveness is the key. So I talk to my clients about forgiving your parents, writing letters to your younger self at different ages so that way you can heal yourself, and focusing on bad and good and negative, positive and negative memories. You know what I mean? So writing a letter to young Eric at 7, letting him know that it's going to be okay. Your father was murdered, your mother was shot, but you're going to be okay, Eric. You know what I mean? And do you know how healing it was? One night at Bible study or at a church service at Times Square Church in New York City, huge church in New York City, Times Square Church. And a famous pastor used to run it. He passed away, Pastor David Wilkerson. And I remember getting on my knees and just crying one night, people surrounding me and putting hands on me and truly forgiving my father for being murdered. I had to forgive him because inside the young Eric felt abandoned.
Yeah, you felt like he left you. Yeah, like it was something that was in his control. Yeah.
But the freeing and the freedom. When I came home, I forgave my father, but then I came home and I said, Mom, I'm sorry. Forgive me. I'm sorry if I was rude or angry. And, because, kids, we get angry at our parents for all types of silly stuff. And we have our, me and my mom had some good years, some bad years, we had rough times, and I had to forgive her and ask her to forgive me. And when I did that, man, I was glowing. And that's the thing. I've put in the work, and I've put in the work so that I was prepared to receive the gift from God to get Alana. And I do things with my clients with character traits and working from 20 down to 5. I do things, different trainings and different things to get you prepared to really have a loving relationship in marriage. And so my program, I went through it, so I know it works. I'll be married 12 years come June 30th. And I am so happy, and we are blessed with 4 boys, and we've been to hell and back in 12 years of marriage.
Yes, you have.
My sickness, we've lost.
Our audience is very familiar with Alana's story.
No, and we've lost, we've lost 3 children. We've had 2 children very sick and almost pass away from respiratory issues. In the children's ICU for 23 days and 17 or 23 days and 19 days.
Oh, well, she didn't tell us about that.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
Jackson and William. William almost died.
Wow, and that's the eldest, right?
No, William is the 11-year-old.
Okay.
He almost died. It was so serious that in the Scottsdale Shea, the ER doctors allowed newborn babies. Now, they don't do this. Newborn babies to come into the children's ICU because he had to have surgery and he was requesting his babies. That's how touch and go he was. And I'm talking about this was October, second week of October. They were born August 14th. So they were babies. And the doctors allowed them to come in because he was requesting his babies. He was 4 years old. We almost lost. So we've been through it, but I am so blessed. And with the chronic illness, I also use medical astrology. So astrology works in so many different aspects of your life. And I would implore and encourage people, to reach out to me at tailored2coaching@gmail.com. My website is tailored2coaching.com. And I am so proud to say I've blessed so many people, done charge for children, for their parents. And obviously, I send it to the parent and I can, curtail it. So, because there's adult information in there. And, the parents have to choose when they want to share that with the child, right? So, I break it down, however they want it done. But I deal only in truth, right? So, and I tell them, I put God first, But I think my way of being godly and a Christian and then bringing in the spirituality of the astrology or numerology and even the medical astrology, it's like a whole new level of spiritual awakening that I share with my clients and for myself. And this is the ringer. This is what knocked it in the hole for me. In my birth chart, you can see in my 11th house, my father's murder. It's literally in my chart. And after I saw that, and I was in a class studying with an astrologer and about 15, 20 students worldwide, different places all over the world, Thailand, London, Australia, parts of America. And the whole class, a pin could drop. Like the teacher, everybody, their jaws dropped and were like, oh my God. Because I have the sun, which in astrology represents your father, Pluto, and in astrology, houses and planets have multiple, double entendre, triple entendre, multiple meanings, right? And so, but it literally was the sun, my father, Pluto, which can literally be death, Mars, which can be a warrior or a soldier or a weapon, right? It also can be affliction and disease, but it can be a weapon, right? Assertive, aggressive, impulsive energy. And Mercury, which can represent cars, automobiles, short distance travel, your local neighborhood. My father was murdered in a car, outside of his car, on a short distance trip from his job to home by an adversary, a warrior, a weapon, right? And with a gun and killed. And that's literally all together in my 11th house.
Okay.
And once I saw that, that was like a pin dropper. I was like, that's a mic dropper. I was like, you don't have to say anything else to me because of the fact that I could see in my chart, because it's not in my sister's chart. I went and checked. You don't see it. It's not that literal. It's not there. It was that literal in my chart, my father's murder. And then I've seen other things, including my own eye disease. My wife and the kids were in a car accident December 12th. You could see that in the chart, and not a scratch on them. And Venus was right there with Saturn and the moon. I mean, astrology, if people are willing to give it a chance and open up their hearts and their minds and not think about the conditioning and programming and brainwashing they've been taught, and don't think of it as a sin, they will understand that God controls. See, and this is where human beings get it mixed up, right? We get arrogant because we're earthlings and we're human beings. Does God only control Earth? No, he controls the sun, the moon, the stars, every single planet in our universe. Don't limit God. God controls it all. So I don't take that power from him. I give it to God, and I'm like, God controls it all. And
yeah,
so,
I love this because I had this conversation with my with my aunt's boyfriend. And so, like he just turned into this devout Christian, right? And so I started talking about astrology because, you know me, every discussion comes, there's astrology in there somewhere. And so he's like, no, I don't want any of that. I don't. And I'm like, dude, it's a science. I was like, just like there's biology.
it used to be how they used the calendar. It was part of the calendar back in the days. Even think about the moon. Do you know the moon has its 4 phases, which is the 4 weeks, but within that it has 7 subsets, which are the 7 days of the week. And the lunar calendar in the moon is what? The same thing as a month. The moon is 30, it's the 30-day cycle, and or 28 to 30-day cycle, and it's connected with a woman's menstrual cycle. When a full moon comes out, a woman can go outside and she can link up with the moon and the moonlight, which at night also helps heal our plants and helps them grow. The moon, okay? And our sun gives us life and helps everything grow, right? Gives us light and life, everything, right? So God basically shows us what these planets do. And the fact that you can see Venus or you could see Jupiter at certain times, you can see different planets, and just the power that they have. I'm telling you, and it is hard because I understand where they come from because that's what they've been told their whole life.
Yeah, it's dogma. And like you were saying earlier, we have to unlearn, I call it reprogramming your own brain. You know what I'm saying? So it is definitely a clearing of a slate. And so having said that, and me, myself, being, I call myself having a lot more spiritual awareness than I previously had. I am in a constant state of growth.
As we all are and should be, right? If you don't change and you don't grow, then you might as well be dead.
Yeah, I believe in constant change, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, but even death is a change, right? A transition.
Well, it's just a transition, right?
Right. So even when you die, you're like literally changing.
Right.
And so
it's in the physical, yeah. But of course,
so
that's a deeper change.
Listening to your story and putting these correlations together, I really appreciate your presence in my life, and I appreciate you telling us your story because you are a very special human being. Your purpose here is very profound just because of your experiences here in this physical time, space, reality have been what we call painful. And so entities that have this type of experience go through these things to be teachers and to give lessons to the masses. And these are crucial and critical areas in the human condition because it's painful and we hate pain. People put themselves in their own prisons just to avoid pain. So I would like to appreciate you at this moment and honor you just for your life cycles and everything that you've been through because you are a very special human being.
Thank you. I feel the same way about you, but I appreciate that. And I really I feel and I know grace and mercy has been with me. You know what I mean? Throughout my life, you know, I'm sure some of my ancestors too. Um, you know, there's so many times where you feel like you're rock bottom and you don't know where this is going to come, or, you know, I can remember a couple nights in my young 20s, struggling actor, going to bed a little hungry. You know, I've paid those type of dues too, where, like, you know, I wasn't asking for no handouts from my sister or my mom. And, you know, Eric Taylor had a Snapple and a pizza, and that was it, you know, and not a pizza, a slice. And, you know, going to bed hungry. And, you know, I
No,
just,
and that's what I mean, because your journey, it's full circle, my love.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you've had diversity not only in your encounter with the types of people that you have met, but also in the type of obstacles that you've had. I mean, you've seen the street, you've seen the creation of a genre of music, basically. I mean, to grow up in the 70s, yo, like hip hop era, like, get out of here. And to be involved in that, and, you know, and to be in that energy coming up from the East Coast, you know what I'm saying? And then your father was murdered. He knew a lot of very influential people. Then you had the college, you know, and then the home life. Like, you have the diversity of obstacles, and also the diversity of spirituality. So there's a plethora of information in that dome of yours.
No, and I got to tell you, one thing that's been kind of wild through the whole journey, I never thought I was less than, or never thought I was better than. I always appreciated the struggle of being a background actor on a set, but I knew that I was a star. But I didn't, you understand, I didn't see myself as like, I'm just this. I saw this as a part of the journey to get it, you know what I mean? And I'm still going to win an Oscar, and I still hope to win a Grammy, you know what I mean? I've got screenplays that I need to share with the world. I didn't tell you, I wrote a film, an independent movie. Showtime almost picked it up. It was called, when I wrote it, Final City. It got picked up and the producers changed the name and messed everything up. It was called, and it's out now on Fandango. It got picked up by Blockbuster and Hollywood Video. Show you how old that was, 2004, 2005. And it's called Hate the Game. I co-wrote it, I casted it, I starred in it, co-starred in it, but I was like second AD, I was everything. I made it happen, you know? And then I wrote a play called The First Supper, a lighthearted spiritual sci-fi that took place in 2027. And it was these 12 people who found themselves in a position where they had to start the world all over again. It was really deep. And I think a couple of people kind of stole some stuff, because I did submit it to ABC, and then they came out with that series and stuff, but I don't want to get into that, but whatever. But, you know, like I won, I set attendance records at the theater for this new TSI, Theater Studio Inc., a new playwright series for new playwrights. I was a first-time playwright and set attendance records at the theater. So I was really proud of that. And, you know, I've had accolades, but I can tell you, wherever I've gone, people always saw me as, they saw the light and the star in me. When I worked on the movie Made with P. Diddy and Vince Vaughn came up to me and dapped me up. He didn't go up to anybody else in background or what else, he came to me. Danny DeVito came to me. Gwyneth Paltrow on the Royal Tenenbaums came up to me. And, hello, nice to meet you, my name is Gwyneth. I said, hello, Gwyneth, it's nice to meet you, my name is Eric. You know what I'm saying? And so that's what I'm saying. Like, people have always seen what I knew that I was. And I would tell you, if my father was not murdered, his plans was to have me be the president of the United States of America before Barack. That's what William Kidd Taylor had planned for me before I was even, you know, he was killed. And then they kicked me out of the private school because they tried to, and here's the thing too, we're talking about what's going on with all this social justice and stuff and racism and things that my kids have experienced in school. When I was in 4th grade, I was falsely accused of writing on a desk. There was, in between the 2 4th grade classes, they had one of those desks where you could like carve things in. Some kid, and I know it was some white kid, carved in the desk, you know, curse words about my teacher, right? And I had sloppy handwriting. They had us write stuff on a piece of paper, and they said that I did it. and blamed it on me because my sloppy handwriting, they were compared it to a carving in a wood desk. Ain't that some stuff? And then I was asked to leave the school, and my mom didn't want to fight it and get a lawyer. So and I was devastated. Fieldston is one of the most prestigious schools in the world, and in Riverdale in New York City, or New York in the Bronx. And my father had me there, and my mother had me there. And I believe that from there, I could have probably gone to Harvard or Yale, would have had a whole different life and experience. And my mindset, and it was so funny, one of the astrologers, when he looked at my chart after we talked about my father, one of the guys in the class, not the teacher, but one of the students who's like way advanced, and he's like, honestly, your birth chart is presidential. And I was like, that's funny, and I started cracking up. I was like, that's funny you say that, because I always joke about 2028, when I'm 58 years old, I'm gonna run for president of the United States of America. I was like, so that's pretty funny, I was cracking up, but that's what he said. He said, your birth chart is pretty presidential. And I was just like, okay, I'll take that. I'll receive that.
Yeah, and then maybe not even a fucking president of the United States. Like, fuck that. I mean, a president for the masses. You know what I'm saying? A leader for us.
It's funny that you say that, because it's weird. Not only at 6 that I had that feeling of taking care of my mother and my sister, throughout my life, and it's actually in my chart, I've always felt this great responsibility just for humanity, for healing it. Because I've always been, when I tell you that I've had friends of every walk of life, I've had people that I know are dear heart racists love me. You know what I mean? I can make the strongest, this person see the light in me and love me. And, really go from, the bourgeoisie of the black and white elite to straight up hood, dealing drug, with anybody, you know what I'm saying? And I've been able to walk in both worlds without any problems my entire life. Always have, and I think I always will. I face more racism out here in Arizona than anywhere else. And, I feel like it's their loss, because I have so much to offer and to give. And I've even had, these racists in my home and entertained them and treated them with nothing but class and respect. And they've never done the same for me. But that's the type of man I am. You know what I mean? I'm better than them.
Right, and we lead by example.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I don't get down in the mud with dirty souls. Like I said in one of my rhymes.
No, and then it totally takes you out of alignment. Like, no, like we're too selfish for that, because when you're out of alignment, you're not in alignment with your purpose, who you are supposed to be. And so when you're not feeling good, or you're angry, or you're feeling these heightened, lower vibrating emotions, no, like who's worth that?
No, and you have to, and that's what I always talk about with my coaching program and with my astrology, you have to exist and try your best to be on your highest vibration, because we can all fall short of the glory of God. When we're on a lower vibration, we can do anything. Humanity can be at its evilest, sickest, evil point, like Derek Chauvin killing George Floyd. When you're on your low vibration, you have such self-hatred that it's so easy for you to take another life and kill a human being. You know what I mean? When the reality is God created everything to be in perfect harmony, from the humans to the animals to the plants. You shouldn't be killing anything, okay? And it's not to get all preachy about it, but that's just the truth, And so I think, Mother Earth is fighting back a little, and I think humanity is starting to see we got to change. We got to get it right. We have to fix stuff, because we've been living so wrong. And just like the Roman Empire fell, this empire will fall too if we continue to live in this sin and this evil and this greed. I have a bunch of isms, and I, always used to consider writing a book about it. And one of them is capitalism does not breed humanism. Okay, and I used to say,
who thought it would?
and I always say, your tears cleanse, really truly heal and cleanse your soul. And just like my podcast on the One TV is the Knowledge is Love podcast, because I always say, when you love someone, you keep them in the know. Because if you ever have to guess, assume, or believe, you can do that wrong. So when you love someone, you keep them in the know, because knowledge is love.
Exactly. Well, Eric, tell us where, I know you told us a little earlier, but tell us where we can go and find all your services and everything that you have to offer.
So basically, you can go to tailoredtoyoucoaching.com, and that's tailored the number 2 in the letter.
Spelled tailored.
Yeah, tailored, like Taylor and then ED, tailored to you coaching.com. The best way to email me is tailored2coaching@gmail.com. And you can inquire and look at my website about my work. You can see my videos. You can go to my YouTube page, Tailored2Coaching, all my social media, and see, a lot of my videos. I have a lot of my work. I'm very excited. I've got a very organic cult following on YouTube where I'm getting so many followers and clients and subscribers. It's just so much love where I don't get the love, sort of like Jesus, right? Nobody honored him in his hometown, right? So I get so much love, not from friends and family, but I get so much love from complete strangers, and that's okay. Because
yeah, that's how it goes.
Yeah, other people will wake up and they'll want to get on the train when I'm all big or whatever, but that's okay. I still love them anyway. But I also love them so much that it frustrates me because I want to help heal them and awaken them. Because I know 110%, and I've done more investigative work than most human beings in 49 years, almost 50 years, than people have in multiple lifetimes in terms of doing the research, applying it to my life, finding out what works, what doesn't work, and then moving forward to heal self and then to heal others. And so I put in that work, and that's what really makes me a good healer for chronic illness coaching, for the relationship coaching, and for astrological birth charts and numerology. And so I tell people, hit me up at tailored2coaching@gmail.com. At Twitter, it's at tailored2c. Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube is just tailored2coaching. And I promise this Virgo will be of service to you and will help heal you on your journey and just guide you and hold your hand and inspire you, entertain you, educate you, and take you to new heights and levels that you've never imagined for yourself. And through the birth chart, you can learn about your North Node, which is your destiny, your 10th house or midheaven, which is your career, your home life, your roots, your 4th house, relationships, marriage, contracts, business negotiations, your 7th house. You know what I mean?
And so how do people go about getting these birth charts, especially if their birth time is not on their
Well,
birth
that's the hard
chart?
thing. You really need to know your birth time. You need to give me the information, your name, your date of birth, the year, time, city, state, and time of birth, right? If you don't know it, then it's really hard. And what astrologers will do if you don't have the time, if you can have a guesstimate, that's good, right? But if not, you can do 2 different charts. You could do a guesstimate. Let's say if you're like, oh, it was sometime in the afternoon, right? The problem is the rising sign ascendant can switch every 2.5 hours. And that sets up your whole chart in terms of your house placement and sometimes where your planets are placed in your chart. And your chart tells the story of your life, maybe if you believe in past lives, your past life, your future life. It shows your children, your destiny, who you can marry, the type of person you're attracted to, your psychology, emotions, your health issues can even, I wouldn't say show your death, but it can show where you could be prone to illnesses. No astrologer should ever predict your death. If you go to somebody, walk away from them and come to me, because that's not fair and it's not right, and nobody can accurately predict that. Only God knows the time, right? So, but the medical astrology, it goes from your head to your foot. So I can tell you where you are prone to sicknesses or illnesses, looking at your 6th, 8th, and 12th house. I can tell you by your sun, moon, and ascendant where you could be prone to, maybe issues with your back, your neck, your throat, kidneys, knees, right? The Pisces rules the feet, Aquarius, ankles, shin, Capricorn, knees, bones, your Leo, heart, and Aries is the head, the face, the orbital bone, skin. You know what I mean? It literally goes from head to toe, from Aries down to Pisces to your feet. So there's so much, and then the planets interact with that as well. So there's so much to learn from your chart about your spiritual health, your physical health, mental health, all of it. Chiron, the wounded healer, is your energy antenna, and it can show where you might have gotten a physical, emotional, or spiritual wound between ages birth and 18 months. And then sometimes I'm even learning more where it can show, depending on the degrees of your Chiron placement, that there could have also been an additional wound where you have issues dealing with your sensitivities of energy around the degrees. So whether it's 27 degrees, there could have been an event at 27, 9 degrees, You know, I think my Chiron's at 8 or 9 degrees. So it was the wound that kind of came right around that time of both parents being shot and then learning about my vision, right? And my vision loss. You know, so there's so much in the chart.
And so do you have any suggestions, you know, where people, like if it's not on their birth certificate, do you have any
Well, you
suggestions on
try to
how they
ask,
could?
no, you could try to go find out from your mom, the hospital, you know what I mean? Because usually it should be on the birth certificate if you can get it. If not, you know, you try to get the best you can from any family members that were around at the time or no. Like I said, if not, I can do like they call like a sun solar chart. So I would set the chart at your sun sign, and that will still give me a general basis of your planet. And that's what some astrologers do around. And so astrologers do videos on Derek Chauvin and George Floyd and their connection. They were literally connected, the murder and how he died. And he just did that sun solar chart. It was really scary. So even through that, you could still see a lot of things. So,
All right.
you know, yeah, so there's ways to help you, but try your darndest, because you really want to know, because that exact time is a game changer. Now, like, for example, I have to get my mother's birth time. I don't have it, but I still know a lot of her planet placements because I know the city, the date, the year, stuff like that. So certain things don't change with the time, but the rising sign and planet placements do change. So
Okay.
reach out to me. I'm willing, you know, to help you with all aspects of that. We can really help you for relationships. What I do is a full 12 house report. It's written, and then I put in video links explaining the houses, because I want you to have this forever. So you can refer to it anytime, and then you also learn a little bit about astrology, but you can take little bites because it's so much knowledge and it's so overwhelming. So with this 12 house report, you'll see my first house. And what does that mean? And let's say you're Gemini rising, right? And then let's say your second house is Cancer, but in your second house, you have the Mars. So I explain, well, what does Mars mean in the second house in Cancer? So that's what the 12 full house report breaks that all down. You learn about that, right? Then I do a custom video summary that sums it all up for you. So you could really just watch that, and I explain it in layman's terms. So you're like, okay, what does all this jumbo wumbo mean? I break it down for you and go through in that custom video summary. I go through, you know, I verbally talk to you, see my face. Then I, you know, literally go on the computer and I take you through your chart and explain every house, the zodiac wheel is a 12 house wheel. And it starts going from 1, you know, 2, 3, 3, and goes all the way around to 12. And I explain that all to you. So you have that. And it's a game changer to be a better parent, a better friend, a better daughter, a better sibling,
To be a better human being.
better
I can
human
vouch
being,
for that.
everything.
Astrology is one of the main focal points of my life because it definitely changed my life. I understood why there was inner confusion in some areas, you know, like
Yeah.
it definitely changed my life, and it taught me a lot about myself, and it was super amazing because like you said, it's like you looking at whatever you reading and you like, how you know me like that?
Right, and that basic, and it's so funny because, right, people will say, oh, I read the horoscope, that's BS. I'm not like that Taurus description. And it's like, yes, of course not. Because that's some general daily basic horoscope for some local newspaper. And it can't be accurate because guess what? Your chart, you are every element of your chart. That's why you're one of one. Every human being has their own footprint on this world, in this universe. And your chart is that intricate that even my twins are 7 minutes apart and everything's the same, but in one chart, they have like something in a different house than the other chart. You know what I mean? So, and then there's a total difference in numerology because the name that your parents give you creates a vibration in the universe and the earth. The world is all math and science. It's all vibration and energy, okay? And that's even sort of the manifestation of God is vibration and energy. And that's what he used to create the planets in the universe. You know what I mean? So, you know, when you learn yourself through astrology and numerology, woo, you become a bad girl or boy because you start to not only have self-love, but that self-awareness. And when you start to understand yourself, then you can stop and be like, whoa, 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 I'm not doing that. That's not aligned with my purpose. that doesn't serve me. That is my lower vibration. That's not who I really am. You know what I mean? You start to naturally become more self-critical, and you don't base yourself and your success on I work at on Wall Street. I work for Goldman Sachs, or I work for Chase Bank, or I'm a Hollywood director. You start to base your life on your soul's purpose and how you can help serve and heal the world. Because when you walk in your North Node, you are fulfilling your life's purpose, and then you find out how you can bless others. That's when you're rich. Not when you got $1 billion in the bank, or you're Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates or these other people. It's when you are spiritually awakened and alive, and you really love the collective and all of humanity. You wouldn't have time to be racist. These people who are racist, they don't love themselves, and they don't even understand the beginning.
Oh my God, thank you for saying that, because that is one of my famous quotes, honey. You act out what you feel inside, okay? Mm-hmm. How about that? So you're telling on yourself.
I received that.
All right, Eric. I love this. Okay, and so I'm so glad that we're having this discussion too, because I will be talking to you later about your services, because I also want to open that up for everyone, since we are showing how people are thriving, and we are talking to entrepreneurs and professionals. And so also the people that I'm interviewing, I'm going to be doing, using their products too, and then doing videos on that. Because awesome. I'm setting up, this is my community. I'm starting a movement here. You thrive.
And that's what it's all about. Good souls uniting.
And so people can come to one location and just get a plethora of information. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That is about you thriving. So, your wife's products
needs that. And I commend you and applaud you for doing that. And I got to tell you, since the first time I met you, and I got to shout out Lanita Nash for connecting us, your spirit and we've never met in person. I'm in Arizona, you're in Chicago. And your spirit, your joy, your smile, your energy, your everything, it erupts through technology, through everything you do, through your words, your humanity, your grace, your just everything. So I just want to commend you and thank you for all that you do for everybody, your clients, but just even for your friends, your old friends, your new friends. And I commend you, and I appreciate and applaud you for, interviewing my wife and me, and we appreciate it. But, you just have a pure soul, and that's part of your gift. Like even in that time that we talked real quick, and I was breaking down your chart just on a surface level, you saw the confirmations. You also saw a little bit of my skill and my work, so I'm a bad boy. But you know what I mean? But you're walking in your purpose and your destiny, and that is why you're on your highest vibration, and that's why you glow, and that's why you're genuine, and your joy is real, and the world and the universe at this time needs you. So thank you for all that you do. You know what I mean? That's real.
Eric. Like, thank you, Eric. That's that Libra coming out. Look, thank you. Let's pump my head up. Okay? Pop it up.
No, but Libras also have to learn to toot their own horn. And you guys, it's not that you're so rough and critical on yourself like I am as a Virgo. And I've learned I've got to stop destroying myself, because I'm tough on myself with the Capricorn moon and the Virgo sun. I literally, I used to put myself on punishment, and I would take away, when I was younger, I would take away a TV show or take away sweets or things that I like for a week or two because I hadn't attained this goal or I hadn't finished this play or this script. I would punish myself. Like that's the type of discipline that I have with that Capricorn moon and the Virgo sun. I'm very self-critical and self-analytical. But I tell people, if you want to know something about your business, your life, or anything, go ask a Virgo. Or a Sag.
Oh, they're going to tell you. My mama's a Virgo.
Because yes, a Sag would tell you from a wide angle lens, because they like to look at the big picture.
That's my man.
But and they're good at that. But then the Virgo will get to the minute little tiny details.
To the details. You're like, what?
To perfect what you're doing and want to literally help you be the best you can be. That's the Virgo heart and the Virgo mantra. Because the Virgo is about the daily routine, the 6th house of the daily grind, health, hygiene, I always joke, I tell my wife, hey, nobody cleaner than a Virgo. Virgos would be like, I'll take 3-4 showers a day. Virgos don't play. You know, we're very meticulous. We're very practical, you know? And yeah, like my computer desk might be a mess, but up here, everything is together and organized.
Yeah, that's how my mom is.
Here,
I was about to say
everything's
she's
together and
like a
organized.
miniature hoarder, but them thoughts.
Well, you know what it is? Because Virgos feel like if they throw something away, they might need it later.
Oh yes, honey.
That's the
Stuff
problem.
she even forget that she had.
Yes,
It's like
that's
you don't even remember
and a
that you
lot
had
of
that.
my wife being a Pisces, she teases me about that, and she'll be like that, but she'll get rid of things too fast sometimes, and it's burnt her. Even emails. She's like, "Why do you have all those emails?" I'm like, "Because you might need to refer back to an old email. You never know." And there was a case, you know, in a legal matter or something that I kept the old email, and I had to, you know, it was financial. I had to refer back to it, and I had it, you know. If I listened to her and just deleted everything, it would have been long gone. So, you know, the Virgo way, we're cautious and precise, but it's helpful. It's beneficial. And some might say we're frugal, but we're very generous and very charitable, you know. And that's my heart is of charity and service. So I would tell anybody that's watching this and your clients and different people, you know, if you come to me, know that you're coming to truth, reality, love, and really someone that is dedicated to really being of service and
Yes, and that's so
really
true.
being
Thank
a friend,
you.
really being a friend.
Yes. And like this is funny too because our very first episode was a male and he's a Virgo. And then now you're the second male and you're a Virgo. So there is a lot of, you know, great messages that you guys have.
That's good. That's good. And I told you, a lot of my best friends were Libras, and my sister's a Libra, and my two.
Well, you know, my rising sign is Libra, honey.
No, I know because you're a Gemini.
Sun sign is Gemini. Baby.
Yeah, no, I know you're Gemini. Well, the Gemini is I got, you know, my son and a whole bunch of ex-girlfriends. But we don't need to talk about that. Because I married my Pisces, and I love her.
Yes, sir. I know that's right. And she's a very special person.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Mr. Eric Taylor, for being a part of the You Thrive.
My pleasure and my honor. You know. Oh, and people can check out my music. You know, check out eComplete on YouTube and eCompleteEntertainment.com. You know, .com. I might be spitting this. I spit some real mean, heavy bars, and I might be coming out with some new music soon. Unfortunately, a lot of my music wasn't appreciated at the time because I'm about 15, 20 years ahead because my rhymes are very prophetic. So I'm actually might be re-releasing and re-updating my very first album, Hip Hop Forever. So look out for that. And I'm going to be, I think, probably releasing in a week or two, hopefully, my first song from the reboot of my first album called Be Careful.
Yeah, and definitely, you know, you can come to the group and post it and, you know, get people's opinions and what's going on. That's what we're here for, baby.
Yeah. So, but I'm also, you know, on iTunes and Spotify. Right now, I only have one song, I think, on iTunes and Spotify and a music video. But that song is a song called Our Love Still Grows. And it was a rhyme that I did after Alana and I got into an argument and I went to the studio and I spit the whole rhyme in one take. And it was a freestyle off the top of my head, no exaggeration, nothing written, one take, perfect song, boom. And it's called Our Love Still Grows. It's on Spotify and on iTunes, and it's dope. And it's got a dope little Lauryn Hill sample. So what you see is what you get when you ain't seen nothing yet. So you got to check that out. It's real dope. And when you hear it, and then you know the story behind it, you be like, oh, that's hot. Because literally, it was just boom. Off the top, one take after an argument with wifey.
Right? Now that's that real love right now.
That's that real inspiration, the real creative love, that creativity, man. You know?
All right. So we're going to thank everybody for tuning in. Thank you guys so much. You guys are loved. Say your goodbyes.
Be safe out there. Everybody start planting and farming with Uranus and Taurus the next 7 years, and it's got another, 5.5, 6 years. We could have a food shortage or supply, recession, all this stuff. Please be careful. People are dying out there. Second wave, all this stuff, masks. Please be careful. Don't let the confusion and mixed stories and lies mess you up from protecting yourself. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be outside. I'm not saying that you shouldn't get the sun. I'm just saying keeping your distance and mask what is that going to hurt you if you don't get sick and cautious? People get it and die. Some people get it and nothing happens to them. But you just got to be wise and careful, because even getting it, you can really suffer and scar your lungs and go through some really tough pain. And I've lost some people in New York. So it's not a game. It's not a joke. And you got to be wise and get ready for more to come. And it's about being spiritually disciplined. This is a spiritual test, and you have to be spiritually disciplined. And the undisciplined can wind up in the hospital or gone. So just remember that. And I say that from my heart, because it's not a game. And start planting something and become a farmer, because we can literally lose our food supply. And that's not a joke. And that, I'm not saying it will happen, but it's in the stars that it easily could. So believe me, I ain't lying to you.
You heard it first here. Grow your own food.
Right.
April is getting a house soon so that she can grow her own food.
Organic, get the right soil, and be healthy. Drink your water, zinc, vitamin C. Go outside. People with melanin have got to get vitamin D, get the supplements, but you need the sunlight. Be safe, be smart, and like I said, be careful. Eric Taylor, Taylor to you, coach.
All right, guys. So like I said, thank you guys for tuning in. You guys are loved. We appreciate you guys, and we will talk soon. All right. Peace out, everybody.
Bye.